Welcome in to the 2025 Keon Sports NFL Draft Show. We have been named the premier draft show in all of Northeast Ohio. We take a lot of honor in that recognition, and we thank you for that. And tonight, we're going to show you again why we are. Joining me this evening, as you can see in studio with us, Dom Cleary, Brandon Soder-Penner, and remoting live in from Columbus, Ohio, Cole McDaniel. Before we get to our panel, which we will here in a moment, again, we want to thank you, everybody, for coming in. Two uniquely different nights for the Keon Sports Draft Show. Tonight, it's all about business, fellas. Pick, breakdown after breakdown. We have a lot of fun with it. Pretty intense at times, but we truly believe we are telling you everything you're going to need to know about each and every pick. Our Brandon Soder-Penner works very hard to have highlights for every pick as well. Night two, it's Chatties. It's tomorrow night. It is the breakout party for Keon Sports, our first ever remote broadcast for our draft show. So excited. So, hey, it's a Friday night. Come on out. Chatties Pizzeria in Bay Village. Head on out. The party will be from 7 to 9. You get there as early as you want. You stay as late as you want. Make sure you swing over to the prize wheel. Grab yourself all the great prizes we have. I know the girls will let you take multiple turns. Plenty of great Keon Sports swag. That is the last thing I will say before we get to the picks. That swag now also, head on over to the store. Our website, Keon Sports, over 25 red hot items for men and women. A lot of unique, great stuff to wear, sizes of all kinds. All right, fellas, here we are, year 6 of doing this together. We've had so much fun with it. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bounce this over to Cole, and we're going to go around here in the panel. But my question to start the show for y'all is, almost seems too obvious, right? You know, I do not personally believe there's a Jayden Daniels in this draft, a guy who tore it up last year in Washington. But is there a quarterback in this draft that could possibly come in, put up the numbers Jayden Daniels did, and take his team to a conference playoff game in his rookie year? It almost seems unheard of. Cole, take it away, and welcome back.
Well, Vince, great to be with you. And I know I can't be there in person these next 2 days, but really happy to be still joining you guys here on the broadcast. It's going to be a fun 2 days and a weird draft. Of all the years we've done this, it's been a long, long time since the Cleveland Browns have actually had a pick in the first round. So night one, we actually get to talk about Cleveland. Cleveland making some moves as well before this draft gets going, moving up to a 5th round pick. They initially didn't have a 5th rounder this year, but trade a couple assets away that were later round picks and they move up. Could that mean that they're going to try to make a move to get into the end of the first round tonight as well? Potentially 2 picks in the first. We'll wait and see what happens. There could be a lot of movement, but I'm excited to see what Cleveland's going to do. Well, before we can even get to Cleveland, you mentioned it, we got to talk about the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward has to be the consensus number 1 overall pick. It's a given that he's going to the Tennessee Titans, and he's my number 1 quarterback in this class. A weaker quarterback class. I think he's head and shoulders above the rest of the prospects. Your question, though, is he another Jayden Daniels? I think as a prospect, he's close to, if not just as good as Jayden Daniels. But it's all about the fit that you have. Just so happens that Jayden Daniels went to a Washington team that they completely readjusted that roster, and they were headed in the right direction. They had good young pieces. They had a lot of the veterans that they brought in that had a lot of experience. Dan Quinn changed that team as a head coach, that locker room. And I think that they were very close to getting to the Super Bowl. They played well and had a good run. Are the Tennessee Titans that type of fit? No, I think they're further away than where the Washington Commanders were. So I think Cam Ward's going to have more of a slower start like Caleb Williams had last year, but I see the potential of him being very good. He needs better wide receivers, but he's got 2 running backs who I think are decent in Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. So we'll see what happens with him. But ultimately, I believe in Cam Ward for the future. I think he's going to be very successful. Year 1, don't expect it to be a Jayden Daniels type year. Probably going to be a slower Caleb Williams type of start, but he'll be a franchise quarterback for a long time.
Dom, same question to you, as well as, is there potential in this draft for somebody to be drafted while at a roller skating rink? Or do you think, that was a one-time-in-a-lifetime type thing when that happened?
It's been a few years since that happened. I think that's unlikely this year. I would like to see it, though.
Well, they're showing Jacksonville up on the screen, right now. Any chance of an owner wearing a neck brace while making the pick?
I mean, we just saw the commissioner of the league ride out in the bicycle, so I guess anything's possible with the opening of this draft so far.
That sets the tone. Do we got a Jaden Daniels in this draft, Dahmer?
I'm going to make this a little bit shorter than Cole's, articulate answer of giving you all this research, and I'm just going to get to the point. No, there's not a guy that's going to be the Jaden Daniels. I think there's a guy that can end up making an impact in the league, but not to the level that Jaden Daniels will outside of Cam Ward. Cam Ward possibly can be a franchise piece. He has the potential, and I think the only concern with him is he's a high risk, high reward at times. He likes to throw it deep, and the way he plays, pretty reckless at times. Josh Allen played reckless in college too, and wasn't as good in college playing reckless.
True.
And now he's one of the best people at protecting the ball this past season. So anything's possible if you put him in the right system, behind the right people. I mean, I think Jackson Dart can end up being a starter in this league, but I don't know if he's going to have a Jaden Daniels type season in his first year or possibly ever. One person I think that's interesting is Milroe. Again, not Jaden Daniels, but I like the fact he can run. I like the athletic ability. And hey, maybe some of the stuff that we've heard about him and the relationship with his teammates is false or over exaggerated, and he can go into a system maybe like Pittsburgh or New Orleans, and they can fit him in properly, teach him how to read a defense properly, and be a little bit more accurate with the ball. Maybe we might have something in our hands there, but this is a really weird quarterback draft where all these guys seem to have more downside than positive. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. Jaden Daniels, though, that kind of caliber, I think it's missing outside of the first pick of the draft, outside of Cam Ward.
I feel like Cam Ward has the physical tools to be a threat in this league. What concerns me about him, and I remember watching it live, sitting on the couch watching it, when he checks himself out of the bowl game, right, at crunch time, doesn't want to be in that last second drive for his teammates. Now I understand the health thing, but you literally have one drive left. One in your college career with the team. You couldn't go out there and try to win the game for them. It's going into business for yourself decisions like that I think a lot of times fly under the radar. And I'm sure it did again this time around. But again, I'm not comfortable with that kind of thing. I think about, hey, this guy should be out there for his teammates. If he suited up and he played the rest of the game, why not try to finish it for him? So for me, Cam Ward, it's more so mental than it is physical for me when I look at what might be his downfall. Brandon, you do as much research on these picks as anybody else. Yourself and Cole just do a phenomenal job every year. What do you think is going to happen tonight with that?
So I don't think there's another Jaden Daniels in this draft, but to be fair, I didn't think Jaden Daniels was going to be Jaden Daniels in that previous draft. He was my quarterback 4. Yeah. If anybody I thought was going to have success right away, it was going to be Caleb Williams, considering the good situation we thought he was stepping into. Now, that offensive line was much worse than anticipated. But if I'm betting on it, I mean, Daniels and even Nix, it's such an outlier to be able to step into the league and play at that high of a level immediately. So odds are, I don't think it's happening. If it's going to happen with anybody, it's going to be Cam Ward. None of the other prospects in this draft have that kind of ceiling outside of maybe a Milroe, but even Milroe, I think, is several years away and has to land in the absolute perfect spot. So as far as guys that are going to come out and tear it up this year, don't think it exists. Because, I mean, even with Cam Ward, he's going to the Titans. The Titans have not had a lot of quarterback success as of late, and their offense isn't really set up for him to step in and just be able to produce. The running game is questionable at best with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears there currently. Calvin Ridley has been a problem at receiver, regardless of how talented he is. It's not a good place for any young quarterback to step into. So I guess, again, long way to say no. I do not see a Daniels style breakout in the cards for anybody this year.
Well, let me pop in there because, you mentioned the running backs very, very briefly there, right? So, for me, as I always say, and good God, Cole's heard me say this a million times on our NFL prediction show, sometimes I show my age. But for me, I grew up in the running back generation with a lot of times a running back would be picked first, second, or third. Running back was the spot in the NFL draft, and a lot of the best players on the best teams were running backs. Now, Cole, this is something where, your video on the running backs got more hits than any other video you did with the exceptional quarterbacks, which always seems to carry it. But do you feel, again, maybe in the 6 years we've been doing this, this is the deepest running back class that we've seen?
by far and away. I mean, this is a quarterback class where we just talked about it, where it's shaky, aside from Cam Ward, and it could go any way. Like, so many people think that it's Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, or number 2 and number 3, but a lot of people have different opinions. Will Howard's up there in the mix. I mean, my number 2 quarterback was Quinn Ewers, and number 3 is Dylan Gabriel, because I see the potential for them in the right fits. So, and I see the experience that they had in college. So, quarterback, for instance, it's a toss-up. Running back, though, this is the year for running back. If you need a running back, make sure you take one. You don't necessarily have to trade up and maybe get an Ashton Jeanty unless you're completely desperate. But second, third, fourth round, there's so much talent out there. Of my top 182 players on my big board this year, 27 of them were running backs. That's how strong I feel about that position group. Wide receiver always has a ton of numbers, but this running back class matches the wide receiver group and how many that I have in my top of my prospect rankings for my big board, because there's so many good ones. So only one can really play on the field at a time for the most part, but whether your team needs a running back or it would just be nice to add to the depth, I think about every single team in this NFL draft is probably going to select a running back at some point. If your team's not getting a guy in the top 4 rounds, they're probably going to get somebody in the 5th, 6th, 7th round who can help round out the roster, maybe make the 53-man. That's how good this class is, and it's a reason why Nick Singleton of Penn State, who's stellar, and he decided to return to Penn State. Probably partially because he wants to see if he can compete for a national title. But at the same time, I think Nick Singleton, he clearly would have been a top 10 running back this year, but next year he might be top 3. And I think that was a good business decision for him, because he would have been buried right in the mix of so many good players. But it's unreal how much talent there is.
Well, again, I mean, Dom, we got about 6 minutes still left on the clock here. How do you feel tonight's going to go in general?
I think that there's a potential that this could be a really weird draft in how teams are shifting around. There's a lot of teams that want to go back, but not a lot of teams that want to go up. And maybe a team gets desperate and buys up. I think that'll be interesting to see if that plays out. I mean, Cole just talked about it. I'm really interested to see what this running back room is. And Cole, you say only one running back can play at the time. Not if you're creative enough, my friend. Not if you're creative enough. Yeah, listen, my favorite thing in the world is having 2 running backs, having an H-back, and leading the way. You don't need a tight end, a true tight end, or more wide receivers. Get them out of there. 2 running backs. Give me a fullback, hand in the dirt, little cowboy collar, and get running. But I think there's a few guys that are interesting in that running back room. I think this wide receiver room, not as deep as years past, interesting as well. The offensive lineman room, Cole, really weird this year. It's not as there's not too many these guys are world beaters. But once you get into that lower half of that first round and into the second round, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of potential. Again, you may not see a lot in the top 10, top 15, but once we get past that mark and then we get closer to that second round and deeper in the second round, we're going to see a lot of offensive linemen going off the board and a lot of needs filling for a lot of teams. So again, you may not have the slam dunk pick. Again, we kind of already know who number 1's going to be. I think it's going to be a fun draft, though. Well, the pick is in, Brandon. I like that little sound effect there.
So as
I forgot to warn you about that.
Yeah. We got some bells and whistles this year, folks. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight, as we said. So that being said, it looks like it's going to be Cam Ward. It's not official yet. We'll find out here in a minute.
Real quick. For anybody watching the other popular broadcast, not to completely call them out here, Cam Ward's being talked about, and the first thing up on the screen is NFL comp Patrick Mahomes. This is why we can't take these other outlets seriously.
Yeah.
Cam Ward is a great prospect.
He's not a Patrick Mahomes.
And his play style isn't Patrick Mahomes either. If anything, he's more Ben Roethlisberger. He doesn't move. I guess. Jeez, man. He doesn't have the creativity that Mahomes has. He doesn't have the arm talent that Mahomes has. It feels like an incredibly lazy comp just because he's going number 1 in this draft.
So
oh my goodness.
no, I agree, and the fun in the chat box is already going. We're gonna get to some of those comments in a second here, as it looks like Roger Goodell might be taking the podium here in a second. But we are gonna point that out, guys. We have a lot of time to kill tonight, so if there's an anniversary wish, a birthday wish, something special you want to say to somebody, feel free, throw it in the chat box. But really, what that's for is questions for us, comments, feedback, what you're seeing, what you enjoy, and what you think a certain team's gonna pick. So as Goodell takes it to the podium here in a second, we will announce that first pick. And again, we got Ginger Williamson, Scott Clary, Zach Duncan back joining us for the umpteenth year. The selection is in, and it's still pretty cool that's in Green Bay this year, I have to say. A football town, if there ever was one, clearly. And we do believe the Browns pick next. They have not yet traded it. It is Cam Ward, so no surprises there. Cole starts off.
Well, I don't think we have too much more to say about Cam Ward. It's an opportunity to talk about the Cleveland Browns, who are on the clock. But I think the main thing just to touch on with Cam Ward as the highlights are up is Brandon's absolutely right. The comp is not Patrick Mahomes by any means. I actually see more Caleb Williams in his game. If we're talking from last year, I think he's going to have a similar trajectory in how his first year goes, has the potential to be a long-term starter, but he's got the mobility like Caleb Williams. I think they have some similar body styles. Now, Cam Ward's a slight bit bigger, but I think ultimately Caleb Williams is probably a much better comp. And ironically enough, again, the first number 1 overall picks in consecutive drafts. So,
and Cole, not to cut you off, but this is vital. So the Browns have in fact traded the pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which has been the rumors all day, really picked up steam over the last 48 hours. And there it is, folks. They've already traded it away, which leads you to believe things are going to get zany pretty quick, as Travis Hunter was the selection at number 2 for the Browns. It seemed like they were locked in on him. Guys, I'll throw it right back to you while we get this out there on the algorithm.
Couldn't have done this before I got the graphic up, guys. Come on.
Cole, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and this is why I wanted to talk about the Browns, because I was hoping we could maybe get to it before the trade happened. But here is the trade. I think the main thing for Cleveland coming into the draft today, my ultimate opinion has been for a little while that number 1 option for me, Abdul Carter. Number 2 option, trade down. And then number 3 was Travis Hunter. Those were really the 3 options that we knew were going to happen coming into today. And I thought Travis Hunter was the worst of those options. He is a stellar talent. I understand where people are saying Shohei Ohtani, Ohtani's a pitcher, but he's a great batter. This isn't the MLB. This isn't baseball. This is football. And in the current era of football, it's hard to play on both sides of the ball. And as great as his stamina is, I don't know if he has the stature to really take all those knocks and hold up. Whoever loves him and is willing to overpay for him, clearly the Jacksonville Jaguars, good for him. He's a better fit with Jacksonville. Here's why he wasn't a fit with the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they have 3 very good corners right now. Denzel Ward, MJ Emerson, and Greg Newsome. Newsome is potentially on the chopping block. So even if they get rid of Newsome, and then you're looking at a nickel corner, Ward's not moving to the inside. Emerson can't move to the inside. Travis Hunter, he's not a nickel corner. He needs to be on the outside matched up in man coverage. I don't think he's physical enough to play at nickel. And I think he's had struggles in coverage where I think he'd get exposed to nickel against shifty receivers. So, and I think he's better as a corner than a wide receiver. If the Browns took him, it was going to be a wide receiver primarily. And I don't even consider him a wide receiver. Most places are saying wide receiver / corner. I don't think so.
Brandon, are details
I don't think
official?
he was a great fit, to be honest. And with me not thinking that he was a great fit as a wide receiver or on the defensive side for the Browns, I think this is much better for him in Jacksonville. I would assume this is going to be him for the pick. And the Cleveland Browns, they probably got a major win tonight. And I'm seeing what the update is.
Yeah, we have the official trade.
Brandon, if you could give us the details on that, and then you guys want to make a guess on Jacksonville's selection.
Per Adam Schefter, we're only moving a few spots here. This is a much bigger haul than I anticipated. Browns are trading away number 2 overall, a 4th round, and a 6th round pick this year. In exchange, they are receiving the number 5 overall pick an extra second-round pick, an extra fourth-round pick, and a 2026 first-round selection.
Wow.
That's a good haul.
That's a massive
moving
haul for 3 spots.
Spots.
So Andrew Berry, if he's still
My
around in
goodness.
2026, good luck. But that is next year, right? So that means the Browns will have
Correct.
2 first-round picks next year.
And we kept our first-round pick this year.
That
still.
is giant, keeping this year's pick. And then, as you said, and now we'll be picking, or not we, but the Browns, I mean, their second-round pick for Jacksonville, that's top 5 second round. So the Browns are going to pick 2 high picks. While we're at Chatty's tomorrow, the Browns are going to knock off 2 really high picks in that second round. This is going to be a blast, fellas. They got a haul. Dom Cleary.
You know, this is a year where everyone wanted the Browns. Oh, got to get a quarterback. Got to get a quarterback. That's not what the smart teams do. You build that team. You get that pass rusher, or you get that interior pass rusher, or that cornerback, or they won't get one, but you get someone that's that small building block. And then next year, let's be real here. This next season, they're not winning a Super Bowl. That's the expectations are not Browns winning the Super Bowl. But you know what they can be? Win 5-6 games, you get a top 15 pick, and then next year you're going to have 2 really good quarterbacks in the draft. Jacksonville might not be good again, and you have 2 opportunities to pick a good pick, and maybe you get your guy next year. If not, you still get 2 first-round picks, and first-round picks are a valuable thing. Also, day 2, you have 2 second-round picks. Now you can fill needs. What do we need? Do we need defensive linemen? Do we need linebackers? Do we need safeties? You can fill these needs in the second round. It's a smart trade. It might not be a glorious one, but in 2-3 years when the Browns are competing for the top of the AFC North, you're going to see why when you look back to this year.
Right. I mean, and then Scott Cleary is already looking ahead to next year when he says, Browns playing for Arch.
They should.
Very possible. Very possible.
Again, you say it's not the flashiest pick. In no world, and I thought in a year where quarterback is not a position that is all over this draft, that we would be able to acquire even a first rounder next year at all. I did not think that would be possible. Like, we do not see that kind of capital exchange hands, regardless of how good maybe some of these blue chip guys are when they're not a quarterback. So to move back 3 spots, get extra capital this year, and another first rounder for 2026, good on you, Andrew Berry. I do not care if Travis Hunter is a Hall of Famer. I don't really care how good he is unless we completely blow these picks, which it's the Browns. It's possible.
And there's no guarantee they get Hunter.
Well, here we go now.
Let's find out.
And I mean, when it comes to Jacksonville, the Khan family, they love to gamble. They love to make that big splash.
And
We've
wear
seen that
neck
with
braces
AEW,
in
wear
public,
those neck
yeah.
braces in public. That is the Khan family. So, again, it doesn't shock me that the Jacksonville Jaguars would roll the dice on this. And I think we're all kind of in agreement then, too, that it's more than likely going to be Travis Hunter. So, kind of wild to see where we're at this early into the night. Already a trade. But, again, just looking at paper, making sure the Browns don't do anything stupid after this, man, what a haul. 2 top 5 second-round picks this year, right? So, again, Chatty's tomorrow night is going to be off the chain. And then looking at Jacksonville next year, I don't see them making the playoffs this year. And if they do, I just don't see them doing a lot of damage.
I mean, they could absolutely make the playoffs.
But
That
about
is
a
not
mid-round
the
first
division.
pick.
In a bad division as well.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that.
I mean, it's Houston's division to lose, but, I mean, we saw them last year. They did not look sharp. If C.J. Stroud does not take another step forward, who knows? And we are finally getting a pick here. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
Colton,
and
sorry.
Jacksonville's still the second best team in that division at
Yes.
the moment. It's a bad division, and sure, they're outside the playoffs. They're outside of a wild card spot last year, and it's probably trending that way. But, I mean, the Colts and the Titans at the moment are still below them.
So I don't have it in front of me, but did the Colts sign anybody to go with Richardson as their Flacco
Yes,
left?
Daniel Jones.
That's right. That's right.
They have the most entertaining quarterback room in the NFL.
So we're already doing our night 2 shtick, night 1. Well, yeah, we're just.
Well, to be
I
fair,
couldn't
Arik
remember.
Armstead's been up here for about 20 minutes getting ready to announce this pick for Jacksonville. So we're getting there.
What happened to going up there and saying the pick and getting off? I mean, we're going up there. We're reading about books. Tell all the good we do. Say the pick.
Chatty's tomorrow night, 7 to 9, Bay Village. Be there, or you're dead to me. All right. Jacksonville. And there it is.
For that.
Surprise to no one. Travis Hunter is the pick. You know, one of the great things Cole does is the comps. You know, who's this guy remind you of? So Cole, as usual, will start off with you. We'll go across the board.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep this short and sweet so we can talk a little bit more about how the Browns probably won this trade. But yes, the Jaguars, they gave up a haul here, but this is their guy. And Travis Hunter got a really good fit. Travis Hunter was not a fit for the Cleveland Browns. He really wasn't. As talented as he is, as good as he is, he doesn't necessarily fit into that roster. The Jacksonville Jaguars, he absolutely does. They need a number one corner. He's instantly their number one corner. They needed a number two wide receiver behind Brian Thomas Jr. Well, he can be your number two wide receiver on the outside if you want to play him on that side of the ball as well. So I think Jacksonville's going to utilize him like he wants to be utilized. Will he stay healthy? Will he hold up in the league playing both ways? I don't know. We'll see. Best of luck to him. I hope he has a really good career. I hope he helps Jacksonville, and I think his star potential may help take them to the next level. But my comps for him, it was Denzel Ward and Derek Stingley Jr. I just view him as an outside corner who's good in man coverage, who has great ball skills, and sure, he can play some on the offensive side, but I mean, his footwork's a little bit sloppy. He's not really great out of the breaks, but he can make plays, and you see that wide receiver ability with him jumping routes on the defensive side as a corner. So works for Jacksonville, and we'll pass it off to the next guys, and then we can talk about the Browns before we discuss the Giants.
Yeah, and Tony Bogan chimed in and says he still believes Abdul Carter or Mason Graham for the Browns. So we will see what's going on there. Dahmer, quick reaction one last time on this trade, and then maybe let's see what the Giants are going to do here.
I mean, he's going to sell a lot of jerseys. He's a big name. People are going to love him there in Jacksonville. I hate saying this. Jacksonville's where good wide receivers go to die. I mean, how many times have we seen good wide receivers go to Jacksonville and either not bloom until they leave or their career ends? I mean, how many players have we seen? I mean, was it Allen Robinson? We didn't really see what he was until he left.
True.
There was another player I can't think of right now, Cole. I think it was another guy from Penn State. Honestly, he was a wide receiver there. Blackman was his name. Career never blossomed. It never happened. I mean, and we've seen other guys in the past few years try to revitalize their career in Jacksonville. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball, whether it's Blake Bortles or Lawrence or me back there throwing a ball or Gerard. It doesn't matter. It's a hard place for a wide receiver to be successful for whatever reason. So hopefully he can end up being cornerback. He can have success there. He doesn't have to rely on anyone for that success. I like Travis Hunter a lot. Again, I watch a lot of college football, but I agree with Cole. I happy for him, but I don't know how much it's going to work out.
Brandon, is Abdul Carter the pick of the Giants here?
I believe so. I don't completely rule out Shedeur Sanders, though I think most people would agree that this is a bit too early for him. But Abdul Carter is the best player left on the board. There's an obvious need at edge for the New York Giants. So definitely think that it's a real possibility for them. Just really quickly, though, Dom, I will say receivers have not traditionally done well in Jacksonville, but keep in mind Liam Cohen is taking over there, and I think he's trying to set up a system similar to what he had in Tampa Bay, where you've got the big body receiver now like he had in Mike Evans, switch that over to Travis Hunter, BTJ is your Chris Godwin type. He's trying to get it going like he had there. Oh, and by the way, he can play cornerback on top of that as well. I see Travis Hunter as more as a cornerback with wide receiver packages. We'll see what Jacksonville decides to do with him. He's a frustrating evaluation because he was my number one overall rated player because he was my number one corner and my number one receiver. I don't know how that necessarily translates to the NFL. So it was a very strange evaluation. Until he shows me that he can't play on both sides, I'm not going to sit here and doubt him, but it would be unprecedented. And Jacksonville is really betting on an outlier, putting that much draft capital in. That's what scares me if I'm Jacksonville.
Cole, the Giants pick is in. Who is it?
Well, the thing is here, Vince, and maybe I'm going crazy, but I just haven't thought through this whole draft process that the Giants desperately need an edge rusher. In their 3-4 base defense, if I'm correct, their two outside linebackers are Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think that Abdul Carter is a great fit here with them. So, I mean, they're really only going to be able to play two of those three at the same time. I think Shedeur Sanders is maybe the better fit for them. And I just want to see Sanders go off the board because I don't want to talk about him much more tonight. And I'd rather him just go to the bright lights of New York and,
I'm with you, Cole.
We can see what happens there.
Well, we're gonna have some time as it's bring out a lot of people are on stage, but that was actually oh, never mind. A lot of green in the crowd tonight.
Can't imagine why.
Oh.
Is it in Green Bay? It's going to a real football town next year.
Is it really going to Pittsburgh next year? I haven't looked ahead that far.
Yes.
Well, I'll just sneak it in here. I think Mason Graham would kind of be my outside selection here if you're looking for an actual fit.
I hope it's not Carter.
Well, the pick is in. It's official. It is Abdul Carter from Penn State. A lot of Browns fans wanted this guy for good reason. You know, I'll throw this out there for you guys. This injury concern. You know, a shoulder you could come back from pretty easily. It happens. You come back, you tape it up, you're good. A knee issue, though? There's no guarantee this guy ever gets back to full speed.
I don't know. I mean,
I think
Vince,
you're willing to bet on it.
I mean, I'll let the other guys talk a little bit here, but I think Abdul Carter is the number one prospect in this entire class. He was my number one by far and away. He's a freak at edge rusher. I mean, sure, he's number 11 coming from Penn State, so it's easy to say he's got some Micah Parsons in him, but I mean, the way he plays, he is a superstar, whether he was in a 3-4 base defense or 4-3 at defensive end. I don't think it mattered. I mean, he is going to make an impact. He knows how to get after the passer. I think he is, because of his experience as an off-ball linebacker and then now being an edge rusher, I mean, he has that versatility, and I think he's going to be good for a long, long time, potentially a Pro Bowler. I just don't love the fit with the Giants. I mean, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. Sure, it's an embarrassment of riches out there, but who's going to start? Who's the third guy now going to the bench who's actually not going to, who's going to be the one standing on the sideline, not starting? I have no clue. With how much you just invested in Carter, it's probably not going to be him. So it's either got to be Burns or Thibodeau. But interesting pick, and it gives us some more things to talk about with the Patriots and the Browns here coming up. But I'll let Dom touch on Abdul Carter here, because I'm sure he wants to talk about the Penn State guy.
Yeah, I do. And can someone look up real quick of what defensive formation Penn State, or not Penn State, pardon me, that the Giants run? Because that can, I mean, Cole, that might answer your question. Because if they have 5 down, you have those 2 defensive ends that are on the inside, and you have two pass rushers that are stand up. I think that's where he fits the best, is as a stand up edge rusher. I don't like his hand in the dirt. He's a little skinny right now. I can only imagine he's going to get a little bit bigger. You know, that NFL weight program, a lot different than the college. It's always a step up. When you go from high school to college and college to NFL, that weight program's a lot different. He pursues the ball well. He has a nose for the ball, knows to where the quarterback is, and his pursuit angles are good. Once the ball, I mean, there's a lot of plays that you're going to see in our highlight reel of him chasing down the line of scrimmage to get somewhere. That's pursuit. He gets to the quarterback well. He has a good outside move. He can rush it inside like you just saw there. I like him a lot. I do get concerned when you're going against like a Broderick Jones type of left tackle. And here's the thing. They're all that size in the NFL at left tackle and right tackle. He might have some problems if a quarterback or a tackle gets his big meaty hands inside of Carter. He's not moving anywhere. He needs to get bigger. He needs to have a bull rush to set up the finesse move. If he can do that, he's going to have a very long career in the NFL. But if he stays skinny and stays small and stays quick, he's going to have some success, but not as much as we've seen like a Myles Garrett has had with the size that he has.
Dom, to answer your question, it's 66% of the time last year they ran a too high safety shell.
Okay, that does not answer my question.
I know it doesn't, but it gets you a little closer to where you need to be. Also on that, though, guys, 2 things here. A lot of people still believe that the Browns are not done trading in this first round. Cole, I mean, you're shaking your head, my man. So doing my best here to get him the information he needs. Not every time is going to be a home run. But regardless.
It's a 3-4. It's 3 down linemen.
Regardless. So what we're looking at here with Carter, okay? Now, you think if the Browns didn't make peace with Myles Garrett, they would have stayed put and took him?
I think you kind of had to at that point. And I'm glad that they made it work with Myles, because the one thing you don't want to do at the NFL draft, and a lot of teams did a really poor job of this year, is you don't want to paint yourself into a corner as to who you're going to have to take. And the Browns are still kind of that way, I guess, with offensive line and obviously with quarterback. But, I mean, yeah, without Garrett here, Abdul Carter is a generational talent. I think there's a reason that, generational talent, I'm taking that a little bit too far. But there's a reason he was getting mocked to the Browns for so long, because it looked like it was going to be a position of need. He was the best player available there. I don't think anybody would have faulted them for taking him at 2. But again, at the end of the day, you overpay a little bit for Myles Garrett, but you get that deal done. You make it to where you can be flexible in the draft. And now they're coming out with a bunch of extra capital, just shifting back a little bit. So overall, like how they're setting themselves up here, and it started with getting that Garrett deal done.
So we got a little bit of time here, which we don't normally get this early into the draft, so it's kind of nice. You know, pick number 4, already at an extended commercial break here. So, hey, let's go to the mock drafts. Who are the Patriots going to take with number 4? And are the Browns going to draft number 5? I'll give you a double bonus there. Who do the Patriots take at 4? Do the Browns stay put at 5?
Well, Vince, I got to say this, that I think this pick now that Abdul Carter's off the board and Travis Hunter's off the board, I think this is when things get a little bit crazy. But for the Patriots, they need a left tackle. They need a left tackle bad. And to me, it seems like Will Campbell of LSU is probably the obvious pick for them here at 4. So it leads me to want to talk about the Browns here. And I think that because of the Browns trading down not that far with the Jacksonville Jaguars to number 5, they put themselves in a really strong position of power. And mind you, the admin of the Cleveland Browns on X today posted that Ashton posted something about Ashton Jeanty and media being around interviewing him. Is that a hint that there's potentially Ashton Jeanty in play at running back?
That'd be something.
I would love the potential of that. That would be something. He'd be a great running back. Whether they bring back Nick Chubb or not, Ashton Jeanty would be the starter. Jerome Ford is then your change of pace back, your third down back to partner with him. So whether Chubb is in that room or not, Jeanty would be an incredible pickup. He's a generational talent. He's excellent. Now, here's the other thing. They put themselves one spot ahead of the Las Vegas Raiders, who supposedly really want Jeanty. Did you put yourself in a position where now the Raiders could come begging for Jeanty and give you a ton more assets and then you gain more assets than you already gained from the Jacksonville Jaguars by trading down a spot with the Raiders, potentially. So we'll see. I think it's either Jeanty or trading down with the Raiders, because the Raiders want Jeanty and you just held their pick hostage. So it's ironic that I popped on Draft Day, the movie, before joining this mock draft, right? Of course, remember the Cleveland Browns made a move with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here we are again, and now it set up all this talking, all this craziness, and it is already wild for Cleveland so far tonight.
Patriots select.
So I forgot the original question.
Yeah, waiting for you to tell me again.
3-4 defense, by the way, on the Giants. 3-4.
Yeah. So again, when you have a 3-4, those two guys in the end, they're typically they're on the line of scrimmage a lot in the 3-4. You can mix it around a little bit, but a 3-4 and a 5-2 are the same thing. The only thing different is what you call it. There's no difference. Maybe if you run an odd or a stack, but it's really the same thing. Same with like a 3-3. It's all the same thing. Cool. I'm with Cole with Campbell here.
So offensive tackle Will Campbell seems to be the consensus pick here. We will see which way it goes here in a second.
I'll throw in Will Campbell, I believe, is going to be the pick. Don't be surprised if Tet McMillan comes off the board as well.
And it is indeed Will Campbell, offensive tackle from LSU.
Yeah, not particularly. Go ahead, Cole. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think not much more here to say. Obviously, with Carter and Hunter off the board at this point, kind of forced the Patriots' hand into a major need at left tackle. So the concern with Campbell is the short arms. And this is not nearly as strong of a tackle class. I think that Josh Simmons of Ohio State is the most talented, but he had the knee injury. So Campbell, the number one guy, he moves his feet great. He's very mobile. I think he's going to help protect Drake May, but the short arms were the concern. But this is a good move for the Patriots, and I'll let Dom and Brandon touch on this a little bit more. But I mean, it just made sense after what happened for the start of tonight.
Yeah, the short arms scare me, Cole. I like his pass set. He does a good job of staggering that defensive end or the pass rusher. I mean, his outside zone is good, as you can see. Get on the outside, get going, get going, get going. He does that well. So run blocking, I don't have much concern, but that pass blocking is where those short arms come into play. And where, again, when you go against T.J. Watt, what happens? When you go against Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons, what happens? The short arms, they'll hurt you. Now, here's the upside with the short arms. Yes, believe it or not, there is an upside with short arms. Quick hands. He can slap the hands away. That's what you have to do if you have short arms. And I'm sure he's been taught that his whole life. Again, when someone's trying to get inside you, you got to move and replace. That's what you have to do with short arms. If he can do that and do that well in the NFL, he will be a defense or an offensive tackle, that can have a really good career. But you can even tell with him walking that his arms aren't very long. I mean, he's an offensive line build. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a big boy. Those arms, something to be concerned about, Cole. But again, if you can slap and replace with those hands, he's going to have a really long career in the NFL. But if he cannot have that quickness and not identify when to move and replace the hands of the defensive tackle before they get inside, he's going to have a hard time with some of even the mediocre pass rushers in this league.
Brandon, I'm going to put you on the spot, my man. Here we go. 7 minutes left. It says the pick is in for Cleveland. They've already put Vegas on the clock here, so I have not seen anything flash across my computer screen or my television screen telling me the Browns have traded it. Looks like the Browns, for the first time in years, many, many years, are about to make a first-round draft pick. Brandon, you are Andrew Berry in this moment. What card are you handing in?
I don't love the players that are still sitting here for Cleveland, if I'm being fully honest. My answers are not going to be particularly popular here. I think you have to either go Mason Graham at this point, because defensive tackle has been a sore spot for this team for several years at this point. I'm also not ruling out Shedeur Sanders. I realize that the rest of this crew is not as high on Sanders, and while this is early for him, I am definitely team go and get your quarterback and stop screwing around, rather than trying to get a guy late in a particularly weak class or trying to move up or maneuver. You do have the capital to do so now, so I'm not opposed to that strategy, but I'm just saying, if you want to take Shedeur and get done with it, I would not kill them for it.
I'd be upset with that pick. I do not want him, as a Browns fan here, I wouldn't really be thrilled with that. We're going to go to the chat box here. Scott Clary chiming in. He originally thought the Browns were going to trade this pick to the Bears, which would have been truly something else.
The Bears.
But it does look like they're going to keep it. Just kind of looking through this. Tony Bogan, he's thinking that Shedeur will be a late first-round pick. So a lot of
That's the more likely option for sure.
Well, I mean, how nervous are you going to be as a Steelers fan if he's still sitting there in a few picks here?
Pretty nervous.
Yeah. So definitely, a curious moment here for the Cleveland Browns. I truly believe, as we've all said, Adole Carter was their guy, but, they made peace with Myles Garrett. And when Jacksonville rolls out that trade package they gave you, you kind of have to do it. So definitely a good move. Scott Clary says, I need Genty here. And to me, I really think, we saw a lot of it last year with Nick Chubb. When he came back, he wasn't up to full speed. I don't think he's done for good. I think he could.
He's not, but it's a weak running back room right now.
Right.
Genty would not be a huge surprise. One name I did forget to bring up is my number 2 overall prospect, Armand Mambu out of Missouri. He's a right tackle, which isn't the most premium position, but boy, our line needs help right now. Could potentially transition to left tackle, but I don't even think you necessarily need to with Jack Conklin constantly getting hurt. That's somebody you can plug and play right away and does not have to worry about it.
Zachary Duncan. I combined Scott with
Zach's going to find that funny.
Zach Duncan says he actually thinks it's going to be Mason Graham. So Mason Graham, I think, might be the safest here, would you say?
Safe it.
I don't know.
Oh, Cole? Oh, we got time, man. Go. What do you think?
I think it's a toss-up. I think it's got to be Genty here.
I agree with you, Cole. That got to be the pick. If you think a lot of people think he's a generational talent at running back, you don't have a running back right now. So I think it got to be him.
Imagine going from Nick Chubb to Ashton Genty.
Yeah, but defensive tackle.
Sound effect, Brandon.
Defensive tackle is something that the Browns could always use, and there it is. So, yep, it's official. Mason Graham, your newest Cleveland Brown, as Cleveland, man, they're really trying to solidify that defensive line this year. Bringing back Garrett for all those years, all that money, and now Graham. I mean, we got plenty of time, Cole. Go right ahead. Final thoughts on this?
Well, I would have loved to have seen them go Genty. The one thing I will give the Browns some mercy on, right? Even though Genty, in my opinion, is the number one running back in this class, because it's such a strong class, I think with all the assets they have, they probably feel that they can get a guy who's close to as good in the second or the third round. So potentially you could see a Quinshon Judkins, like in my mock draft for the first pick of the second round, or somebody along those lines. So because it's so deep, holding off may be okay, where some other position groups aren't as deep. Mason Graham, he was a monster at defensive tackle in college. I mean, he has a lot of explosiveness. He is good at getting in the backfield and getting penetration, whether that's stopping the run or whether it's rushing the passer. So they did just get stronger on the defensive line. It'll be interesting to see if Okoronkwo is back at edge rusher. But obviously, you have Myles Garrett on the edge. We're going to see who else is going to be there, defensive tackle joining Graham. But the Browns trying to find a way to strengthen their defense that wasn't as successful last year as it was the year prior. Good pick, right? And it could be a really nice first pick if they have a very strong draft overall. It's just not going to be as big of a needle mover, I think, for most people until we actually see him play on the field.
Well, Dom, before we bounce it to you, Ray Campbell in the chat room kind of talks a little bit about what I said earlier. It's almost like he heard me and repeated it. Cam Ward quits on his team. Again, I kind of agree with that. Travis Hunter, too much of a wild card. Abdul did have that injury concern, as I brought up, and then you guys were talking about Will Campbell's short arms, so he says Will Campbell has tiny arms. Mason Graham, run stuffer. I like it, coming from Ray Campbell.
Can I comment on the Cam Ward thing real quick before we refocus?
Have at it.
First of all, he didn't play most of the second half. It wasn't the last drive. He didn't play most of the second half.
Correct, but he was still in full pads and could have went back.
That was that was an agreed thing that coach. They told him, we're getting the record, and you're not playing. We're not risking your draft stock. A few years ago, Kenny Pickett didn't play at all, and then he lost a New Year's Six Bowl. It's something that Pitt may never see again. But no, we talked about him like he was tough and he was gritty. You heard that from me from a few years ago. I'm hitting the table. But now Cam Ward, he's lazy. He quits on his team. This was the thing that was agreed with the coaching staff in him. This wasn't him saying, Coach, I'm done. Don't put me back in. They didn't let him back in. So I'm sick of this narrative with Cam Ward, and it's not you. It's everyone as well. I'm sick of the narrative with Cam Ward. It's you. I don't know where the point it's you, Cole. I'm sick of the narrative with Cam Ward, and that's all I'll say of that.
So also in the chat room before we bounce it over to Brandon Sorter-Penner there, Sports by Tofu, interesting name, says that's a big dude. I would agree. And then our own Devin Lowe says, hate to say it, but masterclass by Barry. Getting the Hall to move down and still get Mason Graham is about as good as you could get. I would agree with Devin Lowe on that one completely. And then Eric Soder says, Miles as a mentor will make Graham even more awesome. So a lot of cool things going on there. Brandon, not the running back, but still a pretty good pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a position of need, which I think was the most important part here. While I probably would have taken quarterback or offensive lineman considering who was left, you could have made a much worse pick than Mason Graham. You talked about safest pick. That's tough here because there's a lot of really talented guys that I don't think are going to be bust by any means, but Mason Graham, the only kind of outlier with him is he's got shorter arms. He doesn't have prototypical size for a defensive tackle, but again, you're lining up with Myles Garrett. That's going to ease some of that pressure to begin with from a pass rush standpoint. And again, been an absolute plug in the run game for that solid Michigan defense for the last several years. Could have done much, much worse. There were times where Mason Graham was talked about as the #1 overall prospect in this draft, and for him to land with the Browns at 5 could have been a lot worse.
I would agree. So on the clock, the selection is in. Indeed, you just said his name, and there he is. Ashton Gentry will now go play for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's see what kind of career he could have. I mean, the Browns, over the years, have passed up on some unbelievable running backs. Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson, a couple others along the way. I mean, it's actually kind of a longer list than that. I just gave you the first two that popped in my head. We'll see if they've done it again. How much, Cole, will Gentry help these Raiders?
Well, tie a bow on the Browns really quick. I'll be interested to see, by the way, I want to bring this up. I'll be interested to see if Mike Hall Jr., the off the field issue right at the start of his rookie season. Got him kind of behind the 8 ball. I'd like to see if this offseason he can maybe kind of bounce back. If you can put Mike Hall Jr. in his second year and rookie Mason Graham up next to each other for a lot of snaps throughout games, that's two explosive guys. So it will be interesting to see what the Browns can do there. But they passed on Jeanty. Jeanty goes the next pick, and this was perfect for the Raiders. I know the Bears had a lot of interest in potentially coming up, or were hoping that he was going to get to 10. No, the Raiders desperately needed Jeanty. That's who I had taking Jeanty in my mock draft. One of the worst running back rooms on paper coming into this draft. And now the Raiders got their guy. They really don't have much depth there. They're really not a strong running back room. They needed a guy who can be out there all 3 downs. And this is a workhorse back who knows how to make men miss, and he is tough to tackle. Do I think he's quite as good as what Bijan was a couple years ago coming out? No, but he's not that far behind. I see a lot of skill, a lot of ability out of Jeanty. Great for the Raiders, and I think Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly are going to be very, very happy to have him on the offense. And he was my number 2 prospect overall, just behind Abdul Carter. So really like this for the Raiders.
Dom, Raiders play, in my opinion, in the toughest division, one of the toughest divisions. I'd say top 3 in all football, clearly. Broncos got a lot better last year, made the playoffs. Chargers made the playoffs. We know what the Chiefs have done. Raiders seem to be a distant 4th in that division. This should really close the gap. I mean, I haven't seen the Broncos do anything yet in this offseason that has made me excited as a Broncos fan. This could probably leap them over.
Yeah, I don't know if we're there yet because the rest of this team kind of stinks. So it's hard for me to say that. I do like Jeanty, though. I mean, I was one of the biggest voices online for Jeanty. I mean, constantly saying how this guy should have won the Heisman, and I think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. Geez, not a quarterback, a running back. He had more rushing yards after contact than any other team had in the country last year. That is an all-star talent. That is a guy that's going to be in the league for a long time at a position where there's not a lot of longevity. We saw Derrick Henry revitalize his career. It never really went away, but everyone said, oh, big body, he's not going to be good this year, right? He's with the second team. His career's done. Jeanty could have a career just like Henry as well. I don't think he's as big, but he runs with that same physical presence. I'm really excited to see what he does. He's going to look really cool in the black and silver. Excited to see how he does there, but it might be a year or 2 before we see a huge impact from him. That will really wow us just because this team stinks. And if I was a defense, I would just stack the box and let whoever's going to throw the ball throw an incomplete pass because the Raiders are not very good.
So, Brandon, I'm going to bounce this one off you, man. The Jets. They love to make a splash. Aaron Rodgers, opening night 2 years ago against Buffalo, ran out with the American flag. Everybody cheered. He was never seen from again in any kind of meaningful capacity. Tried to come back this year. He was terrible. What are the Jets going to do here? I mean, do you see them trying to make a splash, or do you see them doing the same thing?
So from a board standpoint, I don't think they're thrilled with how things have kind of laid out for them. Defensive tackle, somebody to go alongside Quinnen Williams. They would have loved to have Mason Graham there. He's obviously gone at this point. Offensive tackle, Will Campbell went, which was to be expected, but he could have slipped to that point. Armand Menbou being the next best offensive lineman when you just brought in Morgan Moses to be that right tackle spot. Not a great fit either. So now you're looking at either reaching at one of those positions of need, or tight end is the other spot where they could definitely use an improvement. Tyler Warren still sitting there available on the board. I think that's the most obvious fit for them at the moment, because again, I feel bad for the Jets to an extent because just their needs have not fallen the way that they would have wanted.
Right, and I mean, again, the Jets are a team, as you said, they don't always make the smartest choice either. You know what I mean? They got a habit like the Browns do and the Raiders do, that even when you think they made the best choice, somehow doesn't work out. Cole, what are the Jets going to do here?
Well, by the way, Vince, pump the brakes a little on the Raiders. I know they brought in Geno Smith and they have Jeanty, but fantasy football players, you're going to love Jeanty. Is it going to move the needle for the Raiders yet? No, they're well behind the rest of the division. They're going to have a killer draft.
Yeah, I like hearing that.
They're going to have a killer draft to make a move. The Jets, though, are interesting. The Jets are going to be better than they were last year. And it's funny saying that going to Justin Fields from Aaron Rodgers is such a significant improvement. But at this point in their careers, it absolutely is. Aaron Rodgers At his age after the Achilles tear, I mean, it was bad. Right? It was not the Aaron Rodgers of old. And I think that a mobile, athletic Justin Fields, who got the short end of the stick in Chicago. I mean, the Chicago messed that up. They could have gone more assets around Justin Fields, and Williams could have gone somewhere else. And I think the Bears actually would have been better. But it is what it is now. Fields played well when he was on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They ended up going to Russell Wilson, and he was on the bench. And for a while, Russell Wilson was winning ball games, but kind of fell apart at the end of the year. Fields gets an opportunity. What do you need to do? You need to give Fields the chance to succeed and to carry that team for many, many years as the franchise quarterback, because he's still young. Well, you have Garrett Wilson there, his former teammate at Ohio State. Now they're teammates in the NFL. I think that's going to be a great connection. But what you really need as well is you need a good tight end. Jeremy Ruckert, also his teammate at Ohio State. They have a good connection. But is Ruckert a true number one tight end in the NFL right now? No, he hasn't shown that. I don't think he's going to be the reliable number one. The Jets are going to take a tight end at some point. It's just a matter of how early they do it. I say you do it right now. I don't like the way the board has fallen. Tyler Warren is an incredible talent. Not normal you're seeing a tight end go in the top 7, 8 picks, but I think it's time for the New York Jets. Give Justin Fields, Tyler Warren, and see what happens.
Every now and then you get a generational talent at tight end too. You know what I mean? You see it every couple of years where you see a guy where you're like, yeah, I could probably justify that top 10. You think he's one of those guys?
So you're only saying that because I'm probably the only person in the side of the Mississippi that might think that he's not the number one tight end in the draft.
Let's hear it.
And again, I think that
this is for a pick that hasn't been made yet. Now it's
I know.
in.
Let's see if it is Warren here. I do think that Warren could be a good pick here. I think that he might benefit with Fields there. Fields like throwing to the tight end. But let's see what the pick is before I have a huge opinion on Warren.
This side of the Mississippi. I don't know. We'll see. Offensive tackles going, high in the draft wouldn't be a shock either. We've already seen one go with Will Campbell. Do the Jets go tight end or OT? They go OT. So does Armand Membo. Please tell me I'm close on that, right?
Membu.
Yeah. See, the over-under on me butchering the name was 7, so there's 1. All right, Jets, though, playing it smart there, and it's a big boy sitting there. He would be playing on that line for him. Cole, what can they get out of this guy? What can they expect to receive, I should say?
Well, I mean, they're looking to take care of Justin Fields, which I think is still a good thing. Yeah, you're not giving him a pass catcher, but you're giving him somebody on the offensive line. And here's the thing with Membu, it's why people are intrigued with him is because he's very athletic at tackle. I don't see any ability to bounce over to the left side, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to try to do that. His mobility is great. I think he does a good job mirroring his edge rusher that he's up against, but I don't look at him as a mean, nasty, physical tackle. I don't see that from him in college. I do see the athleticism, but I looked at him as more of a second-round draft pick. I didn't like him as a first-rounder personally. He got a lot of hype and was rising up draft boards in recent times, but he was much further down my list. So I'm not necessarily moved by this pick. Armand Membu of Missouri was my 57th overall prospect on my big board. I feel like they could have done better at this pick, honestly.
Well, gentlemen, let me throw this out there for you because up next on the clock, the Carolina Panthers, the Cleveland Browns. As I said before, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Jets, the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are 3 teams you routinely hear about blowing drafts, being mishandled, just ruining what could be sure things. The Panthers have had an awful last 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, my goodness, blowing the number 1 pick a couple of years ago doesn't look like that's going to shake out for them. Quickly here, who are they going to pick here? Who's your guess? And we'll make it super quick. Cole, we'll start with you. We'll go around the board real quick. Who are the Panthers going to pick?
Tet McMillan. They need a big wide receiver.
Dom. Panthers select.
Yeah, it's going to be wide receiver. There's a few good guys there. I mean, I'm not super familiar with the wide receiver class, I will admit. But McMillan's a good guy here. I like cool. Let me know if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I like Igbuka from Ohio State, but I don't know if he's the guy here to be picked. I think it's a little too early for him, but McMillan might be the guy here.
See, don't be surprised if it's Ted McMillan. He's far and away wide receiver 1 in this draft, at least for me. If you're going to look on the defensive side of the ball, because the Panthers do still need plenty of help there, this may be where we see Jahdae Barron come off the board. They could definitely use some help alongside J.C. Horn. And somebody that is a little bit more flexible from the corner spot, where you can play him in the nickel, throw him outside when you need to, and he can have success at both spots. So I think he fills a couple of different needs. Not particularly huge on Barron. I think he's a jack of all trades, master of none type deal, but might be a good pick with the Panthers, who I think are further ahead than they expected at this point, especially considering how last season started with Bryce Young. But yeah, Jahdae Barron or Ted McMillan would be my picks here.
So, Dom, I got some bad news for you, my man. So, I thought we were going to rush this Carolinas pick. Now we got a ton of time to kill. So, going to throw this out there. Number 1, Sanders is still on the board, right? I didn't have some sort of blackout and missed it. All right, he's there. So, Sanders is still on the board, right? Let's take a quick look at what's ahead here. The Saints, the Bears, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, the Colts, the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, the Broncos, the Steelers. Out of all those teams I just mentioned, maybe the Saints?
Saints would be. Yeah.
The Saints.
If he gets past the Saints, he might be strapping on the old black and gold next year, my man.
Don't say that. So, again, he could end up in Indianapolis, but I haven't heard anything really about him going there.
Oh, that'd be something.
So I think that if he slips past New Orleans, he's either going to be picked at 21 or he's going to fall into the second round.
I do think there are plenty of scenarios where a team decides to trade up for him. New York, the Giants have specifically been sniffing around it. Don't rule out the Browns now.
Can you imagine that?
With the extra capital.
Could you imagine that?
But if we get to 21 and the Steelers don't pick him, that's where I think the slide can potentially start. Because that then tells me there are not a lot of teams that value him particularly high. Which, again, totally possible. He did not have the greatest round of interviews, given he is a Sanders, so he is going to bring out the worst in some of the people that can remain anonymous, right? Of course, no one's put their name to saying that, oh, I didn't like, how he interacted with us in the interview. So it's tough to completely judge that. But again, we could definitely see a slide if the Steelers are not particularly interested. But without Aaron Rodgers in tow, what are you going to do if you're Pittsburgh? You have, again, kind of painted yourself in a corner here. Mason Rudolph is currently quarterback 1. So if not Rodgers, if not Shedeur, what's the plan?
I'll tell you what, we got some time to kill, and this cracks me up because we all rushed to get the Panthers pick in.
Hold on.
And now it's been 5 minutes.
I'm gonna say this. I'm going to say it. Cole, I'm going to say it. If they don't get a quarterback, Mason Rudolph is fine. I'm going to say Mason Rudolph is going to somehow win you 9-10 games. 2 years ago,
is Duck Hodges still in the league?
You know he's not.
Kenny Pickett is.
2 years ago, my goat, Browns QB. 2 years ago, the Steelers needed 3 wins to get to the playoffs. They were 4 wins. They did not have their starting quarterback in Kenny Pickett. He was throwing a temper tantrum in Seattle, so they went to Mason Rudolph. Guess what Mason Rudolph did? Those 3 out of those 4 games, the Steelers scored the most points in those games they had in the past 3 to 4 years. He can win you a football game and put up a lot of yardage. I don't mind Mason Rudolph. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl. It's going to win you some games.
Okay. Well, folks, the Panthers are finally making their selection after a lot of small talk.
Really, taking lunch.
Probably at Chatty's Pizzeria. So, guys, you were right, and you nailed it, too. You nailed the receiver and everything. So they do. Panthers go receiver. They take McMillan out of Arizona, and it really kind of seemed like everybody was on the same page there. Colio?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, they have Adam Thielen, and I mean, he's kind of operating out of the slot for them in recent times, and Xavier Legette is there, but he's more of a stronger, sturdier body receiver on the outside. So what did you lack? You lacked the length and the height of somebody. And funny enough, I mean, I would say that McMillan going to Carolina just gives Bryce Young a guy who, if he's not perfectly accurate with his throws, it doesn't matter. The catch radius for McMillan is absolutely insane. It's why one of my 2 comps for him was T. Higgins. That freakishly long body of T. Higgins is what I see a lot of times when I look at McMillan. He's a jump ball, contested catch master. Bryce Young started to get into a little bit of a rhythm at the end of last year, so they're going to try to see what they have out of him, and I think that McMillan is going to help him out. Is he as good as other top, like, number 1 wide receivers in recent classes? No, he's not. But he was the number 1 receiver in this class. His catch radius, his hands, that was the important thing, and I think it's a good move for the Panthers as they try to develop.
Staying with Mr. McDaniel, reporting live for Columbus, Ohio tonight. The pick is in. The Saints are going to make it here in a second. Cole, who are the Saints going to go with?
Well, it would be interesting if they go with Sanders here. If Sanders gets by the Saints, then he's probably going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But
don't say that, Cole.
I mean, Tyler Warren could be interesting at tight end. They haven't had like a true number 1 tight end in a long time. Will Johnson at cornerback, maybe. I mean, they gave up Marshawn Lattimore not that long ago, so they could use a star outside corner. I think it could go multiple different directions for the Saints, honestly.
Talk about tough divisions in football. I mean, you look at the Saints. I actually think that's one of the weakest divisions in football, if not the weakest. So, are the Saints a few tweaks away from winning that division again? It's kind of thrown out there.
No, they're not. The Saints suffer from perpetually not tearing it down to the studs. They have been in this kind of illusion that they are a competitive team since Drew Brees left. They just absolutely refuse to strip it down, go young, collect assets, fix your freaking salary cap. The Saints are the reason I believe the salary cap does not exist. It is not real, because every year we hear about how they're 70 million over and then they somehow make it work by the time the year starts. But every time you do that, it's because you're restructuring contracts, you're kicking the can down the road, you're bringing in free agents, you're overpaying for guys. Blow it up. Derek Carr is not the answer. I'm not saying Shador's even the answer, because, again, I think we're heading into, inevitably, one way or the other, a full-blown rebuild with the Saints. So, no, they're not a few tweaks away. That division is better than I think you're giving it credit for, too, Vince. I think the Falcons are well on their way now with Michael Penix Jr. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team next year, but they almost were this year, even with Kirk Cousins playing some god-awful football at the end of the season. The Bucs aren't going anywhere. They're a well-coached team. They're not going to necessarily be Super Bowl contenders every year, but they're, again, still good. Carolina, another young team kind of on their way up. If I'm the Saints, this is the time to start the rebuild, and they just absolutely refuse to do it.
I mean, the Buccaneers, since they signed Baker Mayfield, I mean, 2-time now divisional champs, playoffs. They've won a playoff game with him. So, to me, barely, yes, but I still feel that, it runs through Tampa at this point. Still got quite a bit of time. Obviously, the pick is in for New Orleans, but they're still interviewing McMillan here, so plenty of time here. And, guys, as we look forward to tomorrow night, 7 to 9, Chatty's Pizzeria in Bay Village. Head on out. Plenty of good food there. Looking over the menu the other day. Ton of good food. Brandon, you were there recently. Got the pizza, said it was pretty good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been to Chatty's a couple times now. Even well before they were a sponsor, I was there for my birthday, I think 3 years ago at this point.
Happy birthday.
That was years ago, but thank you.
Still, I hope it was happy.
It was. No, the cool thing is they do that kind of traditional New York style of pizza incredibly well. And then they still also have what they call grandma style. I always consider it Sicilian, like that thicker crust, square kind of pizza with the crispy edges on it.
Pizza.
Oh, phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Nonna's pizza. You let the oil sink into the dough. Dough rises up, the thick crust. You get that crunch. You can feel the oil oozing out of the thick crust. Nice little layer of cheese and pepperoni.
Yeah, and it's amazing because we had normal pizza tonight that was just kind of like, and then
it's no Chatty's
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's no Chatty's.
For sure.
I'll have to get the Sicilian or the grandma's pizza.
It's the same thing, I think.
It's the same exact thing. It's just different ways of saying it. Yeah.
All right, we might actually have a pick here, guys. I know everyone's probably thrilled hearing us talk about pizza, although we do have the two resident Italians. I already hit it for the Saints.
Maggie McKee.
Let me run my show, Tom.
I'm sorry. I like the board. It's
Maggie
all
McKee
right.
in the house, by the way, our little mini producer over there.
I think she's judging me over there.
Yeah.
It's okay. I am too.
I don't know.
Oh.
I mean, I think they're going to go offensive tackle. And they did go offensive tackle, actually. It's Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas. Texas had a hell of a year. That is a massive human being sitting on that couch. Woo-wee. So, yeah, I mean, this is actually a great pick. You guys said, hey, is it a time for the Saints to tear it down? Derek Carr, what can he really do? But this is a great cornerstone pick for whatever they're going to do. This is a guy who can line up a tackle for the next 10, 15 years. Absolute beast. Cole, what can you tell us about Kelvin Banks Jr.?
I think this is interesting because in my mock draft at number 9, I had the Saints taking Will Campbell of LSU, who's a left tackle. So the thing is, it's kind of fitting that he is, my goodness, you are giggling again. This is every year for me.
Did you see that lady's shirt behind him?
Oh,
it said the pick is, and it's just a picture of him.
Probably not good that my left arm is numb right about now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cole.
This is roller skating all over again. But needless to say, I think the thing here is Talise Fuaga,
big boy.
who I valued at tackle in recent drafts. I think he's a better right tackle than he is left tackle, and they were needing to put him at the left side. Now I think they could flip Fuaga over to the right side, put Kelvin Banks in at left tackle. I think it fits for them, and it just tells me that they'll probably get a quarterback later on, whether that's bringing in a Kirk Cousins or whether that's drafting somebody in a later round. But at least now there's a good blindside protector, and they can probably switch Fuaga over.
Hard to think, but we're already through 10 picks here as the Bears will make their pick here in a few minutes. 10 picks in. After we get through the Bears, I'm going to do a quick breakdown for anybody kind of catching up late with us, but we're going to wait a minute on that. But kind of wild, we've seen, scrolling here, 3 offensive tackles already off the board. Such a position of need. And really, gosh, look at the Browns. I mean, a lot of Cleveland fans watch our shows and visit our website. Just look at the Browns. It's almost like you need 7 quality offensive linemen at all times.
And I do want to make a point. I think this is where the offensive tackle run stops, though. The problem with this draft is you're going to see a lot of guys that are high on boards as offensive tackles, but most of them are going to end up transitioning to guard at the NFL level. Kelvin Banks, I think, was the last of those prospects that's going to be a true tackle, at least within this first round here. Don't be surprised if we don't see... Yeah, Simmons, I still don't think Simmons goes this early. I think the next guy we see is like a Gray Zabel to Seattle. We may be looking at 9-10 picks before we see another one come off.
Plenty of time here as Laura Rutledge. And I missed the first name of the other young, dapping looking.
Just say the pick. What are we doing? Well,
SLT.
Probably talking about like a great charity or something. That's
Gotta
like saving
sell
kids'
to.
lives.
It's probably something very deep and meaningful, but again, we have it on mute here.
Schedule release.
When? That's next week, right, fellas?
I just want the pick.
Soon.
Listen. You can schedule. You can post the schedule tomorrow. I don't care. Just tell me the pick. I will not just do. Hey, what are we doing?
Maggie,
everything got to be a spectacle.
Maggie, raise your right hand if you're going to get pizza tomorrow, or raise your left if you're going to get some Sketties.
Sketties?
Spaghetti.
Why do you say spaghetti?
She doesn't know.
She knows. She's Italian.
The other day, Madeline asked me for apples and candy. She's like, Daddy, can I get some apples and some candy?
Well, what type of candy?
For her, it doesn't matter.
So
this lady's still dancing around.
They still got the schedule release thing up. We're actually going to watch all 32 team selection videos before the Bears pick is announced. So I hope you guys are ready to strap in.
Can I talk about this pick real quick? The last one that just happened.
Sure. Can I complain about the American Medical Society? Oh, go ahead.
Is that what it is? I think so. I like what Cole was saying about moving him to right tackle. He seems like a better run blocker. Usually, like to put your better run blocking tackle on the right side. He does have the body to play both. That is crucial. Was it Membu?
Yep.
I think that he had the body of a right tackle. Kind of really long legs, lower bottom half. This guy here, he has the body that you want to play both sides. He can switch over. but he's a run blocker. He looks real good in his stance. He's a world eater. He has good hands. He'll push you down the ladder or pancake you. I like the pick here from the tackle out of Texas, and I think he can play both ways on that side, and that's something that you really want.
It's a great pick for the Saints. And Tony Bogan actually says, talking about Brendan Soder-Penner saying how they really patchworked it, said it's been that way for years. Not good enough for the playoffs, not bad enough to get top picks.
Yep.
Bogan's
And guess what?
right.
They're in the same position this year. They got a great pick in Kelvin Banks. He was slipping down people's draft boards because I think we just had a little bit of prospect fatigue, but no problem grabbing him there at 9. But yeah, like I said, you got to put yourself in a position to draft high, get some real cornerstone pieces in your skill positions, especially.
Yep. And Tony, if you're going to be at Chatty's tomorrow, people would love to come on and meet the famous Tony Bogan. If you're going to be there, throw me some double thumbs up there in the old chat box.
That's why I'm going.
To meet Tony Bogan?
Yeah.
I know. I've heard about the legend.
I could use his autograph.
He doesn't charge. So now here's the Steve Mongo McMichael thing. And
Which,
you kind of figure it is touching. I'll throw this out there because apparently we have about 87 more minutes to kill before they make this pick. Was Caleb Williams? I wouldn't consider him a bust by any stretch.
No.
Anybody?
No.
Not many people saying that.
He was average last year.
Yeah,
Give the
it's
kid
hard to
some
live up to
time.
that kind of hype. Yeah.
Yeah. Peyton Manning threw 92 interceptions his rookie year. He'll
And
be
who
okay.
knew Jaden Daniels was going to
Roughly.
tear it up? It always stinks when the guy after you does so well.
What's
He-
Walter
he-
Payton Man of the
He
Year
also
award?
he also he
are
also
we
played
doing?
he also played an offense that was designed by a toddler. So
Yeah, well, that guy was an idiot. Aberflutes.
Matt
Yeah.
Eberflus.
and
Yeah.
they had
he's
too many
gone.
they had too many cooks in the kitchen at wide receiver.
Well, the pick's in. It is tight end out of Michigan.
The next 3 picks are probably in at this point.
I don't know. Stab in the dark there, but according to this big board, it's telling me it's Colston Loveland. So for the first time tonight, we're going to trust the internet over the television. But according to whatever website I'm on here, it is saying the tracker on NFL.com is saying Colston
It makes
Loveland.
sense because Colson's halfway through his rookie season by this point.
Tight end. So now we were talking about
See the pick.
you guys thought Warren was
There we
going
go.
one,
We did it.
Golly.
and
What
you
are we
guys
doing?
You get an extra chime for that. Good job, NFL. Thank you.
I mean,
Wait, did
I have-
the lady shirt did say on the clock, right?
huh?
On the clock, or the pick is in.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
pick is in
So
for about
regardless,
10 minutes.
You guys were sold on Warren, but it is actually Loveland as the first tight end. Another Wolverine going in the top 10 here. Cole, is this guy going to be a long-term solution for Williams?
No. I mean, it's
No.
it's a really, really good
He sucked.
tight end class, right? At the top, there's like 6 or 7 very good tight ends, and Loveland is one of them. But is this way too early to pick him? Absolutely. I wouldn't touch him until the 2nd or the 3rd round. I mean, he's good, but is he the level of Harold Fannin Jr. and Tyler Warren? He's not. If they wanted to go tight end, they should have gone Tyler Warren here, because you could have run a package where you consistently have Rome Odunze and DJ Moore on the outside, and you can play Cole Kmet and Tyler Warren on the field at the same time. That would help your run game, and it would be good for Caleb Williams for options to throw the ball to. But they go Colston Loveland. And sure, he can pair fine with Kmet. I think he's an okay blocker. I mean, he's a good pass catcher. Does he bring the next level of pop to your offense? One of my player comps for him was Jeremy Ruckert, a guy who I said I very much so liked coming out as a prospect. But he's no better than a tight end number 2 on any given team in the NFL. And Ruckert has been fine for the Jets, but has he been a producer? He hasn't. And I think that Loveland is likely not going to be a significant producer. He's just a good tight end.
Cowboys will pick after the Niners make their selections, so still plenty of time for the Cowboys. Here's a wild scenario for you, my man, because you're all worried about Pittsburgh. What about this one? This one's crazy.
If you say what I
Dak
think you're gonna say,
Prescott
no,
traded.
No, no.
Dak
No.
Prescott
I'm not
traded
entertaining
to either
this.
I'm sorry, to either Pittsburgh or a different team, and then they take Sanders at 12,
Yeah,
which is
so-
really what Deion Sanders wanted all along.
So I'm not entertaining that.
Sitting right there. It is literally sitting right there.
This is a bad pick.
What, the 49ers right here?
No, the Loveland pick's a bad pick.
Oh, yeah.
You have 2 guys, and I know I've been doing on the whole Warren thing or in Fannin Jr.
You guys were sold on
You
both guys they didn't pick. It's crazy. But go ahead.
you pick one of those two, you have a tight end for a while that can again, I know everyone thinks Warren's the total package.
This side of the
I think that Fannin is the total package, but it doesn't matter. You had two options of tight ends that you could have picked that were both better than Loveland, and you picked the guy that isn't the guy out of the tight end room. I don't get it. I think it's a bad pick. I think that I think Warren would have been the better pick there, but what do I know?
It's especially surprising when you consider that, Ben Johnson is taking over. You think about Ben Johnson's offense, you think about creativity, you think about getting, freak athletes and things like that, and that's everything that Loveland isn't. And I think he's fine. Like Cole said, he's a tight end too, I think, on most teams in the NFL, but that's about his cap, and that's not really somebody that you're going to want to take in the top 10, especially when you're Chicago and it feels like you're kind of on the precipice of something with Williams, with getting the coach you want in there finally, with finally getting this offense going, and that's the pick that you make. I would have rather re-up on offensive line. Like, I know they kind of they addressed that in free agency a bit. There was talks that Genty might fall down to them. I'm wondering if that's what they were hoping for. And didn't really know what to do when their time came up. But yeah, Colson Loveland is puzzling, especially too. Tell me if I'm wrong, guys. Cole Kmet still on that team, correct?
Who?
Yes.
Cole Kmet.
Yeah. Yes.
And again, not a great tight end by any means, but if you're going to draft his replacement, I feel like you got to try to make a splash, not draft somebody that has roughly the same ceiling, if not lower, than Kmet. So yeah, it's puzzling to me, but that's the Bears.
Everybody in the room agrees on this, So what does that tell you, right? We will see the Bears are another one of those teams that a lot of times seem to screw up a sure thing. None of us truly know until the games are played. Here's a commercial for the UFL. I got to say, we covered them a couple years ago when they were in Canton. We covered them 2 years in a row. That was a blast. Have any of you guys had a chance? I know Cole and myself were fans of the XFL at the time. Any of you guys, have you had a chance to watch any of this yet this spring, or been a little too busy? Because I caught a little bit the other night. It's still pretty good.
Admittedly, I have not
Okay,
really gotten a chance. I've seen clips, and it's cool to get football when there's no football on. I think that's about as far as it goes. It was really cool, like you said, to go out and cover them, especially playing in Canton. That's an awesome stadium. Great hosts for that the whole organization there. But yeah, you get some cool clips out of it. You get like a guy like destroying that YouTube kicker.
That's a good story.
Seeing stories like that is nice. Gets you some clicks and things, but it's not a superior product to the NFL. It's never going to be. It's just a stopgap until we get football again.
Yep. So, Maggie, you are the youngest person to ever appear on the NFL Draft Show. How does it feel? Pretty good? Yeah, liking it? All right. You want to wave hi to our audience there?
This graphic coming up on the other unnamed network that's probably on our TVs is hilarious.
So, hey, Maggie, thank you for stopping by. All right.
So that's interesting, and I don't understand why they would do this, but
current starting quarterback.
They were showing Shedeur Sanders quite a bit. Now, hold on, though. As the Niners have not yet paid Brock Purdy, a lot of other GMs in the league, or anonymous sources, I should say that they would not be comfortable paying Brock Purdy the money he is likely going to get.
See, I mean, Zach Duncan is assured that Pittsburgh is going to take him. They're going to trade up.
Zach Duncan is
Zach Duncan, man. That guy usually he hits it.
We were at the Cavs game yesterday, and he was telling me that, and I stopped listening as soon as he started talking.
Oh, you went?
Yeah, I was there.
Don and I were thinking about hopping over from the Jake to the
Cavalanche hit us.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I guarantee you Kyle Shanahan would hate Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, there's not
no
a
way
mix.
Those two are going to mesh. It's not going to happen. I'm going to stick to what I went with on my mock draft. Kenneth Grant, nose tackle, adding to that defensive line, bolstering it up in San Francisco. So we'll see. They could go a lot of different directions, but I still think Grant is probably one of the best guys on the board right now, a good fit for them. But I don't think Sanders could ever go to the Niners and it work out.
I think Walter Nolan might be the most likely pick here. They need help all up and down that defensive line. And I think he fits well with Raheem Morris's scheme there. But going back to this Brock Purdy, Shedeur Sanders things, that's definitely not going to happen. Not the biggest Kyle Shanahan fan, as you guys know. He always tries so desperately to be cool with like the way he wears his hats and everything. No one in this draft would be better at helping him up his game than Shedeur Sanders. Just saying.
The selection is in.
Please
49ers
sure
fans.
Sanders, please.
You
I
know,
just don't want to do this.
If it's Shadur, we're not talking about anything else the rest
Cole
of the
and
show.
I talk about this a lot on our show. You know, Brock Purdy, system guy. This would have been the year he would have had to make the jump to be a superstar, and he didn't. You know, when guys were injured around him. Just saying.
Yeah, so it makes it difficult to decide if you want to pay him or not.
I don't think there's any chance in the world they take Sanders. I just don't.
It's hard to be a good QB. Darn it.
And they
It's
don't.
hard to be a good QB when everyone around you is falling apart by the seams.
So it is Mikael Williams out of Georgia, the defensive tackle, the edge there. Good pick. The Niners known for having a stout defense each and every year. Cole?
Well, I think they need to go on the interior, but instead they go on the exterior. Sure, you have Nick Bosa on the edge, and you just add another edge rusher, but I was not nearly as high as on Mikael Williams as a lot of people. I think he plays hesitant on the edge. I don't think he's as explosive. Maybe a little bit slower startup on his jump because he doesn't just get after it immediately. So I think sometimes he's just a little too overly patient, and when he gets some sacks, a lot of times it's maybe coverage sacks or because other good teammates around him pressured the quarterback in his direction. Sure, he can finish up the play, but I don't think he's nearly as explosive as Mike Green or James Pierce or Jack Sawyer or some of those guys out there. He's long. He'll be okay probably in the league, but he was my 68th overall prospect. I don't think he should have gone this early. And like I said, I think he was further down my board for the edge rushers. He was actually coming in at number 6 for me. So, and he's the first one to come off in this draft. So don't necessarily love it. Would have preferred Kenneth Grant or somebody else in the middle for the Niners.
Before we get to the rest of the board, I think I already know the answer to this question. If I was to bet money on it, I think I know you guys are going to say Loveland, but you don't have to. I'm going to read out the first 11 picks real quick, and you tell me so far through 11 picks, that's for about 1/3 of the way in, who's been the biggest reach? Ready? Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Gentry, Armand Membu, McMillan, Banks Jr., Colston Loveland, Mikael Williams. Who has been the biggest reach so far?
I'm gonna go with Loveland. I don't get it with two of the guys ahead of him on the board. I don't get the pick.
Has
also,
anybody picked
it's-
out a need to the point where like, wow, they didn't even need that? I'd say no to that one.
No, I don't think so yet. Also, it's Genty, not Gentry. Every time you say that, I'm like, who are you talking about?
That's 2.
Yeah, that's okay.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, and
so
I took a sip without on. It's 3.
yeah,
Rolling.
your sip counters on 4. I love hearing the Vince McKee. Refreshing.
Brandon,
But,
who's
yeah, go
been
ahead.
the biggest reach?
This
Folks,
is gonna.
we were together for 18
Oh,
straight
guys, we
hours.
gotta
and
pick.
18 straight hours and kill each other. We did okay. Brandon,
Please
who's the
do.
biggest reach?
Please
We got a pick
Sure.
here. I actually think Mikael Williams. I can expand on that later.
Okay, we got plenty of time. Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. the
Never mind.
next-
It's Tyler Booker.
Cole, what do we know
Wow.
about Booker before we get to Brandon's disdain for him?
I mean, Booker is a big physical guard. Very powerful. He was my number 2 guard in this class behind Donovan Jackson. And the main reason Donovan Jackson gets the nod is because his ability to kick out to left tackle this year, I think, actually helped his draft stock. He is a natural guard, but I think that propelled him over Booker. But Booker is a very talented player. I think everything's bigger in Dallas, so maybe fitting that he goes to Texas. And being in Dallas, I think they need to find a way to establish the run game, which they didn't have last year. And I think they're going to have to take strides in this draft by selecting another running back, bringing in Javonte Williams, bringing in Miles Sanders. Doesn't quite get you exactly where you need it to be. It's an improvement from last year, but Booker at least can help clear running lanes. So it's potentially a step in the right direction for them. This is not the biggest reach of any of these prospects. It was the pick before Mikael Williams.
So I'm assuming I'm up, Vince, because usually you take the reins after Cole. Didn't know you were waiting for
You
me
already
there.
have him, man.
Um,
I was waiting to
Yeah.
take my next sip. No, go ahead.
yeah, Cole. Again, he's a good run clear. there's some about the way he moves that scares me a little bit, but he's built like a guard. Every time I see a guard like pull that's built the way he is, that big lower half, it like scares me because it looks like he's moving backwards. But I mean, on these double teams, there's no getting away from him. It's hard to break it. It was the right pick here. Again, I think it's not the pretty pick. Again, no guard is really, but it's the one that they needed. I mean, you see on the clips that we're showing here. I mean, just look at the way he picks up that twist. I mean, it's beautiful. I think it's the right pick. I think Dallas made the good choice here. Again, not the prettiest pick, but you need someone to protect that $60 million quarterback. That's not Shedeur Sanders.
So, Brendan, you had a lot to say.
Yeah, I may have overreacted slightly. And it's not super surprising in that the league seems to have been really high on Tyler Booker. When there are definitely better prospects on the board still. He's my 65th overall prospect in this draft. Some more tackles again that you could convert. They hit a need, so I don't think it's egregious in that. But if you're going to take a guard at this point, I want more of a sure thing. And he played in an SEC school. He played against great competition. Not the greatest balance on tape, which is going to hurt him at the NFL level. That's something that's hard to kind of transition and learn when the guys are only getting bigger, faster, stronger. Again, not the quickest on his feet, which doesn't scare me quite as much. He'll be able to hold up. He'll be okay. But again, I feel like maybe you couldn't get Booker because the league seems to see things that I haven't seen in him, and he was likely going to still go in round one. And of course, Genty being off the board, it would have been an obvious fit in Dallas. They still need running back help, but they can get that later. So I'm fine with the position they took. I just think, again, not nearly as high on Booker as consensus.
Now, the Miami Dolphins, again, this is a team playoff bound almost every year. Last year, injuries really came up and bit them. What's the long-term answer for the Miami Dolphins? Not only at quarterback, but just in general. They're going to be a passing team. They're going to be a running team. They've shown us the last couple of years they could do both. But do they have a true identity? Cole, not only who are they going to pick, but what is the identity of the Miami Dolphins?
I think their identity right now is they are a team that excels in warm weather. I think that's honestly what I look at them as, because Tua is a pretty accurate quarterback, and he throws his receivers into space where they can get a lot of yards after the catch. I mean, then you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and receivers that can catch that football and gain big yardage. They have speed in the backfield at running back. So when Tua is healthy, they're cooking. Then they hit the later part of the year where they have to go on the road, cold weather games, Buffalo, New England, and then they fall flat and fall apart. They need defense. They need to learn how to be physical. They should go defense here. I would say Nicky Manwari, the best safety in this class. They also need nose tackle, Kenneth Grant potentially, but it should be defense. They need to learn to be physical.
Dom, I feel like the AFC East is so far away of Buffalo's division. Miami led the division 2 years ago for almost the entire year, right? Buffalo fired Ken Dorsey, went on a hell of a run after that. But do you feel Miami is a heartbeat away from catching Buffalo, or is this really a boat race?
No, it's a boat race. I think this division has been like this since the modern setup of divisions in the
I almost did it.
I
almost did it again.
I think in the NFL in the modern setup of the NFL, this division has been a boat race. Whether it was New England most of my life, and now it's been Buffalo.
Yeah.
I think Miami might show that they compete, but how are you going to win a game when it's cold in Foxborough, or when that turf you put your foot to it at MetLife and your cleats aren't sticking the same? Those turf shoes that you can wear in Miami, they ain't working at MetLife. Or when you go to Buffalo and it's below freezing and their quarterback can grip the ball, but yours, his arm's too cold, his feet are stuck in the snow. How are you going to respond? And they can't. That's the answer.
They can't.
Now, you might be able to smoke a team out when it's 97 degrees out. And the way that your stadium's set up, the sun goes right on that sideline of the opposite team. Yeah, you could win that game. But how often are you going to be in that in the playoffs? Not often. This is Buffalo's division. Miami, they're just there and until someone takes that second spot. They're not a serious contender.
Yeah, it's a division that could be kind of up and coming in general. Miami, I feel like we're just kind of starting to hit a wall. I think it starts with Tua and even Mike McDaniel to an extent. The philosophy of team building isn't all the way there. The offenses are great, the speed is great. Trenches have been a massive issue in Miami for a long time, and they just seem to refuse to address it. Hopefully they do here, whether it be offensive or defensive. I'm okay with safety as well. And Cole, I do actually want to ask you about that here in a moment. But yeah, Miami's got some work to do. I think New England is well on their way to competing in this division. Not this year, but I think they're the most likely to take the next step up. I think even the Jets are more likely to take that next step. Miami, I think, is kind of heading in the wrong direction. Their cap situation's not great. You kind of see where the cap is with how far Tua can take you. With his injury histories and with his play when he is healthy. And then, of course, the team building philosophy is only going to get you so far as well. But, Cole, I wanted to get back. Consensus with almost every draft analyst is that Malachi Starks out of Georgia is the top safety in this draft. You said Nick Emmanwori was your top guy. What do you see? Like, just kind of talk through that as we are getting ready to get the pick. But again, they're still walking out, so you got a few minutes here.
Yeah, I think Emmanwori's bigger. I think he's physical. I think he reminds me more of Tyler Nubin, the type of safety that I like at strong safety who could crash down the box. I also prefer Xavier Watts over Malachi Starks. I think Starks is more of your Lewis Cine type of guy. He's not as physical of a safety, good in coverage, but I don't know how he fits in, whether that's strong safety, free safety. But I really think that there's potential for Emmanwori to be dominant. So, but pick is in, and we'll touch on this here in a moment. It was one of the two guys who I mentioned a few seconds ago.
So for the third time in 13 picks to open up the 2025 NFL Draft, it is another Michigan Wolverine, this time Kenneth Grant.
Well, we talked about needing to get physical in the trenches, right? And finding a way to, if you have to go on the road come playoff time, how are you going to be able to stop the run of some of these teams that are used to the cold weather? And perhaps with the way that the Miami Dolphins are set up, maybe they'd get lucky, right? And go on a run of multiple dome teams, but they need to find a way to win in the cold because Kansas City, they're still going to be good for a while. Buffalo's still going to be good for a while. There are multiple teams out there. You know the likelihood of you having to go to a cold weather stadium, unless you get the number one overall seed, is highly likely. Kenneth Grant is a great pick for them. They needed that interior help.
Down 3 Wolverines already off the board. Says a lot for Big Ten football.
Sorry, my mic was off for a second. I was drinking water, and I turned my mic off.
So you're acting like a true pro. I like the hack sitting next to your left. All good.
It's okay. One of us works in radio.
Listen,
it's so I'm used to.
You're good.
Yeah.
I don't got that hot button over here. But I mean, Cole's used to dealing with me.
We need to give you a
21
cough
straight
button
weeks.
or a drink your LaCroix button. What were you asking me, my friend?
The Big Ten. All right, so Michigan now. All right, that's the third Michigan Wolverine off the board, and my God, the Big Ten now, the Big 47. Just kind of looking here real quick. I think Penn State. I'm staring at this real quick. I believe Penn State's the only other Big Ten team who's had a selection, but still 4 Big Ten selections. Just to kind of wrap this up on the Dolphins, do you think this is the year Tyreek Hill kind of flames out? That the Dolphins have really gotten all the
He
juice?
may not be on the team anymore, man.
I mean, he's just
So to
combustible.
answer your question, Vince, I think we already had that year. I think last year was the year that we saw the.
When opening day starts off with you getting arrested, that's not the way to start the year.
Which was ironically his best game last year.
Yeah.
It was his best game. But you know what we did find out about that, through that arrest of Tyreek Hill, the one thing we found out is that he had surgery, I believe, on his knee, that he had issues going into the season we previously were not aware of. So he's had some health issues with his knee. I mean, we know about his off-the-field issues. I'm not going to hammer it home. This isn't the show for that, about picking apart someone's home life. But we know the issues there.
True.
Again, the season before, his home burned down. I mean, he has his knee issues. He's getting arrested right outside the stadium. And if you're the cops, I mean, how do you not know who Tyreek Hill is? He's the starting wide receiver for your team.
Right. Coming off the best year of his career right before that.
So you have a lot of that going on. But I think we already had that year. I think you can find ways from being productive. But when you're so used to being the fastest guy on the field and you're not anymore, there's no easy way to adjust.
Well, one thing here, too, kind of moving on a little bit from the Dolphins.
Oh, Lord.
You know, Cole knows I love the Colts. I'm not a huge Colts fan, but I do like them a lot, right? I mean, they're one of a teams I usually believe in is going to be good. You know, their selection right now, Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, another Big Ten selection. So that's 5 Big Ten selections in the first 14 picks.
Between 2 teams.
You guys liked them, right? I mean, you've gone a little bit back and forth tonight on that, talking about this side of the Mississippi and everything. But Cole, I pull for the Colts, right? In many situations, hard overhead, I'll pick the Texans or I'll pick maybe Jacksonville. But the Colts, to me, a blue-collar town in Indianapolis, a city that I would love to see have a winning football franchise yet again. How much is he going to help him? Because I kind of feel like, hey, Richardson might not be the guy, clearly, at quarterback, but this should help.
Yeah, it should help. And by the way, the thing about the Big Ten, I mean, Big Ten football this year was so good, and there's so much talent in the Big Ten. And the thing that's interesting, Penn State and Michigan leading the way, but we expected that to happen. It's funny that Michigan, probably is going to have 4 of the earliest guys going, but after that, they didn't really have much of anything on their roster this past year. So, I mean, Will Johnson's probably going to be coming up potentially here in the first round, if not slipping to the early second. And now you have Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter at Penn State. So probably the first 6 picks from the Big Ten are going to be Penn State and Michigan guys. And then Ohio State, likely the rest of the weekend, they're probably going to set a record, if not tie the record, for most guys selected from one school in the same draft. So it's going to be a slew of Buckeyes coming here before too long, and might even start a little bit tonight. With maybe Judkins or Egbuka, Simmons, Jackson. I mean, we could kind of run down the list. Warren, though, I don't love, for his sake, going to the Colts because Anthony Richardson's not the answer there. But if only they could get him the number 44 jersey in Indianapolis. I believe that Zaire Franklin at linebacker has been wearing that. I really hope that they can get him the 44 jersey because Dallas Clark was an incredible tight end wearing number 44 in Indianapolis.
These
that
clips
would be
are
so great.
Incredible too, by the way, Brandon. Great job.
He's an incredible tight end, a very, very talented player, and he's truly the number 1 tight end there, and he's going to be one of their best targets. I like where their receiving core is headed. They just need a quarterback who's better. Richardson, again, isn't the answer, but I think Warren will have a long career.
Yeah, I'm going to add on here, Cole. I know I've been talking, he's my number 2 and all this, and I'm biased, but he's a guy where throughout the whole year, no matter who they played, he was the bailout option. There for Penn State. The game, I've been to a few Penn State games this year, probably more than I ever have, and it just seemed like whenever they needed to find someone down the field, he was there. It didn't matter if it was a broken play, it didn't matter if it was set up that way. He was always open. And he found ways to be open as well, and they found different ways to use him. They loved those packages at the goal line where they put him right behind at quarterback, or the true wildcat formations, or they just find different ways to give him the ball. That could be the situation here with Indianapolis, Cole. With Richardson at quarterback, whoever's quarterback there, you can have some crazy stuff with him where you're running an option play and he's one of the guys that's in that option. There's a lot of things you can do if you're creative with the game of football. If you're not, then I don't know how else you're going to use him. Again, you can use him as a traditional tight end, but I think he's so talented and so athletic, you could find different ways to use him other than just, hey, put a hand in the dirt and block down with your tackle, or, hey, put your hand in the dirt and run a waggle route. There's different ways to use him. You can run screens with him. Boy, you can even hand the ball off to him. There's different ways to use him. He's extremely athletic. He's a good blocker. Again, he's my number 2 tight end in the draft, but he's one of the best tight end talents that we've seen in a long time. If they can be creative with him, he's going to have a long career in the league.
So conceptually, and from a traditional team building standpoint, you have a young, struggling quarterback. Get them an outlet guy like Warren, where you can get him some easy completions. The problem is Anthony Richardson struggles with that part of the field. He struggles getting the ball to his guys at the short and medium depths, which is where Tyler Warren is going to get the majority of his production. So a great player there, and a tight end was a technical need for them. But as you mentioned, Cole, I don't love the fit for Warren himself. I think there's maybe 30 other teams where he would have been able to put up better numbers than with Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson has time to figure it out still. It's so bizarre that you have a prospect or a player that's so good at completing those downfield passes, but just can't figure out the other parts of the field. So yeah, all that to say, I don't love the pick for the Colts. I think they were kind of expecting to have to take Colston Loveland here, which may have actually been the better overall fit for them because I think Loveland's a little bit better of a blocker than Tyler Warren is. Ultimately, though, I would have either gone linebacker, Jihad Campbell still sitting there if you're Indianapolis, or if you want someone that's going to be able to maximize the talents of Anthony Richardson, somebody like Luther Burden that you can put on the outside and go out there and be your jump ball guy, your true X. Give him someone that he can just kind of toss the ball down the field and have a receiver actually have a chance to bring it in. But again, don't love the fit, love the player. Just a weird marriage.
Well, Brandon, on our pre-show, we kind of joked around a little bit after we went off air, and I said to you, Brandon Sorter punter with a 15th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select. And here we are. So I'm going to do it again. Brandon Sorter punter with the 25th pick. Oh my God. The 15th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select.
Mike Green's still on the board. I'm running this in. I'm running this pick in if I'm Atlanta. Your defense played better than they should have last year, despite having absolutely no pass rush whatsoever. Don't think twice about it. March the card in. Go get Mike Green. If he wasn't sitting here, if we get a little bit of a drop-off in edge, I'd be looking at the corners. Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson still sitting there available. But unless something has popped up on Mike Green's background checks or his interviews or something, which is very possible. We cannot forget that this guy was at Virginia, gets released from there over off the field issues and ends up at Marshall, which is the only reason he's there to begin with. Unless something's come up there, it's Mike Green. And I'm a little worried because Mykel Williams went before him. I thought Mike Green was going to be the second edge off the board, and he wasn't. So maybe there's something there, but don't overthink this. Send it in, Mike Green.
Well, I have to say the Indianapolis Colts at pick 14, they got great value because they took my number 7 overall prospect in Tyler Warren. Be a great opportunity for the Falcons to capitalize on value. My number 6 overall prospect, my number 2 wide receiver, Emeka Egbuka of Ohio State, is sitting out there right now. Getting Penix, a guy like Egbuka, to partner with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan in the backfield, be incredible for their offense as they're trying to take strides in the right direction to make the playoffs. And I think it's very possible. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. They need to go edge rusher, like Brandon mentioned. Mike Green is my number 2 edge rusher in this class behind Abdul Carter. My gut instinct is it's not going to be him. I think that Jalen Walker, the outside linebacker, he honestly truly fits in a 3-4 scheme as a stand-up outside linebacker. I think that's exactly what the Falcons run. I think there's a good chance there. I just have a gut feeling that James Pierce Jr. of Tennessee is
don't do this to me, Cole, for the love of God.
I don't love him, but he's fast, he's long. And
Talk about a guy with character
there's a good chance they reach for him just because they think the fit is good.
I might walk off this set if it's James. James Pierce is my 70th overall prospect.
Yeah,
he in a weird system in Tennessee where they just rotate their guys, their defensive linemen in like it's a hockey match, and I don't know what that. And people are like, oh, it's because they have so much talent there. Maybe, but ultimately, Pierce, with all of the talks about how awful of a prospect he has been to deal with and how uncoachable he was, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a conditioning issue or something else that was limiting how much he was on the field. No, just if you're going to take a risk on somebody that has character problems, take Mike Green, who has been a proven commodity much more than I think Pierce has.
Well, I got good news for you, Brandon. They didn't take Pierce. In fact, they took a guy who had a 1% chance of even lasting this long. And that's Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. I say 1% chance on mock drafts all across America. This guy was long gone by now. So the Falcons might have got the steal of the draft so far. With the 15th overall pick, Jalen Walker, linebacker, Georgia, now an Atlanta Falcon.
I wouldn't. He was projected to go this high, yes. He's another guy where the league, I think, is higher on him than they really should be. And he gets a little bit of a bump for being a Georgia Bulldog. Still an okay pick. I'd much rather have Jalen Walker than James Pierce. Well, Walker was a weird one because he was an outside linebacker at Georgia, and really only one game did they put him as a true edge, and it was in that Florida State bowl game. And he just absolutely dominated. Now, given Florida State was playing with half a roster, but the team even said, hey, we're going to look to do this more going into next year, and then they just didn't do it. So if anything, I think Walker is more of an unproven commodity. I think that's why the NFL is so intrigued with him over maybe somebody like Mike Green, where we kind of seen everything already. So it could be worse. I don't necessarily think it's a steal, but it is a little bit later maybe than the NFL expected him to fall.
Cole, your thoughts on Jalen Walker going to Atlanta, and also who are the Cardinals going to take at 16 before we bounce it over to Dahmer?
Well, it's better than James Pierce.
Yes.
I think the fit was definitely there with James Pierce, so I could have potentially seen it, even though I didn't think it would have been a good move. I'm not moved by this move. I understand the whole 1% of mock drafts or whatever, but a lot of people valued Jalen Walker as the number 1 linebacker in this class. He was my number 2 linebacker, but that's not saying much. I think this is a very average to below average linebacker class this year. I think Jahad Campbell was well above the rest, and it's an okay group. And Jalen Walker, sure, he stays in Georgia. I think he could be successful. I think he fits the 3-4 scheme very well. Could be potentially a good player, but I had him going number 29 to the Washington Commanders. I just, it's better than Pierce, but it's still not perfect. The Falcons could have done better with this pick. Mike Green would have been head and shoulders better than Jalen Walker here, but Walker was my 23rd overall prospect. He's still a good player. I'm just going to be interested to see how things actually pan out. Now, part 2 of the question you asked me what the Arizona Cardinals might do here. I think the Cardinals could go a variety of different ways, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And by the way, Trey McBride was great last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't quite have the chemistry quite yet with Kyler Murray. I think that's going to be a focus for them. And it sounds like Kyler Murray has said that's going to be a focus this offseason. But in my mock draft, I had them taking Kelvin Banks at offensive tackle from Texas. I would be early for this, but potentially they could take Josh Simmons of Ohio State. I think he's one of the best tackles remaining here at the moment. I think he's the most talented. It's just the knee injury is why he was probably going to be a late first round pick. But he has experience at right tackle from his time at San Diego State. Then came to Ohio State, was at left tackle. He's been good on both sides. They could really use a right tackle. And I think opposite of Paris Johnson Jr., also an Ohio State guy, I think that could be a really, really good fit. If not, I could see them really going safety, or they could get Egbuka and pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr. and have him in the slot. I think there's a ton of ways that the Cardinals could go here. They're a hard one to pin down, honestly.
Dom, I'll go ahead and toss it to you.
You want to talk about the Cardinals, or you want to talk about the previous pick?
I mean, it's up to you, really. What do you think the Cardinals are going to do here at 16 and kind of wrap a bow on Walker to the Falcons?
It has to be Simmons, right? I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, unless they get a wide receiver to pair up with the options they have. I mean, they have a proven running back in my goat and James Conner.
I feel like they're going line. Either way,
yeah,
offensive line or D line.
I mean,
here.
You need an offensive line to keep building on that. You already have the tight end. You have the number 1 wide receiver. Again, unproven so far, but you got to trust that chemistry will come along.
I think
you
he had
have the
spots
quarterback.
last year. I think Harrison
it'll come around.
Yeah, I think he had spots last year. I really do.
But I mean, maybe defensive pick, maybe, but I think it has to be offensive line.
Do you partner him up with another Ohio State receiver? How sick would that be?
I mean, you could, but you got built from the line.
Guys, I understand offensive line, receiver, sure. And this is not the best group, because I know we all know ball. But, I don't know, I'll throw it to Vince. Without saying Buda Baker, name me a defensive player from Arizona's team last year.
Oh, I couldn't.
Exactly.
Patrick Peterson.
No. Again, they
Is he still on the
need
team?
help.
No, he
No,
retired.
I was gonna say,
David Tomlin.
what did I miss?
they don't have much. Again, you could go like every level of the defense. They need something.
Very true.
Quite literally. If we're looking at relative value, having both Jahdae Barron and Will Johnson sitting here, Johnson being my 9th overall prospect, getting him at a little bit of an injury discount. True outside corner, I think is the best value, but Cardinals, other than tight end and quarterback, can really go any direction.
Again, too, that division is just so wild every single year. So they do go defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. Cole, what can you tell us about Mr. Nolan, the latest Arizona Cardinal?
Nolan's a pretty athletic defensive tackle. I think that in their scheme, and I think last I can remember that the Cardinals, they were running that 3-4 scheme, so 3 down linemen. My guy Baron Browning's there right now from the Denver Broncos and got moved over. So I think that they have a lot of room to improve on that defense. I think there's a lot better defensive tackle still potentially available right now. I know that Mason Graham is gone. I understand that Kenneth Grant is gone. I still prefer Tyleik Williams, and Nolan was a little bit further down my list. I wasn't as high on him. Now, the thing with him is because he's not a true nose tackle, I think he'd align more as that D tackle. So he's not going to be right down the middle, right over the center. Probably going to be going more up against the guards, probably on the defensive front. But I think the speed and the explosiveness could potentially help the Cardinals. But again, I think there's better names and there's better prospects that they could have got. Nolan was my 60th overall prospect, so he is one of the biggest reaches so far in the first round, in my opinion.
So we got a little bit of time here before the Bengals make the pick, and when it comes to the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers, we'd like to take a little bit extra time because again, a lot of the people who follow this website, follow this YouTube channel, are fans of the Cleveland Browns. They just are. So, or Pittsburgh Steelers for that matter. To me, the Cincinnati Bengals almost feel like a sports car at this point. Really shiny, could do a lot of great things on the outside, but you just don't want anything to break, or you're looking at thousands upon thousands of dollars of repairs. And I truly mean that. My analogy being this, okay? Cincinnati on paper, when you look at their offensive threats and who they re-sign, who they're bringing back, they should be a damn good football team this year. But the last couple of seasons, they've not been able to stay healthy when it counts the most. And they've not really been able to make a lot of adjustments when the original game plan maybe wasn't the greatest. We saw a few meltdowns in the second half last year. We saw some times where the Bengals couldn't do anything until it was almost too late in the game and they were already out of it. Cole, Cincinnati for you and I, this was a team that I feel like you and I have spoken about a ton over the years. You and I are both huge Joe Burrow guys. Looking at it though, looking at the total package, and I want to include the coach in this situation as well. Okay, Colio, are the Cincinnati Bengals built to win a Super Bowl right now or no? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. And I love what they have on paper offensively, but I'm just not seeing it. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I don't see them as a Super Bowl contender, and I'm a little surprised them getting to the Super Bowl a couple years ago because I don't look at Zach Taylor is a good enough head coach to be a Super Bowl winning head coach. I don't trust, as good as I think Joe Burrow is, I don't necessarily trust Joe Burrow to stay healthy. And part of that's just because he's gotten screwed over by the organization by not having a good offensive line from the jump. I mean, he was like the most sacked quarterback in the league his rookie year, and then kind of was getting hurt early because of that. Who knows where he could be at statistically already at this point. So unfortunately, as good as they are on the outside, where they decide to pay Jamar Chase and they decide to pay T. Higgins. The thing is they have the talent on the outside. I like Chase Brown in the backfield. I was high on him. He has absolutely been a hit. But I think the big thing for them is defensively, there's some concerns right now. And I think losing DJ Reader was one of the biggest things that has hurt them in recent times. They could use another strong defense tackle on the inside. They need a new edge rusher because Sam Hubbard decided to retire pretty early in his career. So they need somebody opposite of Trey Hendrickson. So I really feel that they should go defense here, regardless of the position. Go and get the best guy, whether that's Jihad Campbell at linebacker, or you can get Jack Sawyer and keep him in the state of Ohio because he's a natural in a 4-3 defense. So regardless of what you do, I think you got to get tougher, whether that's on the offensive line or whether that's on defense. Just have to be a tougher football team.
I feel like there's no way in the world they don't go defensive line here, or not even defensive line, anything on the defense, cornerback, linebacker, whatever, DN. For Cincinnati to pick anything on the offensive side of the ball, to me, is just beyond stupid.
Unless
they
it's
have
line.
to go defense.
I think offensive guard specifically, they could use some help. But I feel like this is going to be the guy that continues to slip, unfortunately. But with the uncertainty surrounding Trey Hendrickson, Mike Green, again, I think is an obvious fit here. The most talented guy left on the board, in my opinion. If the Bengals don't pick him here, I think he continues to potentially slide. But yeah, like you said, both of the top corners still on the board as well, in Campbell and Johnson. It would be hard to mess this pick up. I won't say that they won't because it's the Bengals, but the board could have fallen much worse. But that's what happens when you need quite literally everything on defense. It's going to fall for you because you kind of got your pick of the litter.
I agree. And again, this is why we always spend a little bit extra time here when it comes to the division. Dom, Cincinnati, it just seems like they're hit and miss. And you are Mr. Steady Eddie when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the things that I love about the Steelers, even though they're obviously a rival of the Cleveland Browns, and I get that, but one of the things it's hard not to like about the Steelers, right? Consistently good. Cincinnati, what do they have to do to be consistent?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the construction of their team. When you're built on skill position players, it goes off of their health, and sometimes it doesn't go that way when you're not built in the trenches. When you build in the trenches, those guys on the outsides and your running backs, quarterbacks, they can be healthy. The problem is with the Bengals, not all their players have been healthy because they keep getting hurt because no one's protecting them. So I think their construction's been a problem. They've been trying to fix it, but every move that they make comes with another issue, and a lot of it's been cap space.
Well, the pick is in for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we are correct. It is an edge rusher. Shemar Stewart from Texas A&M. Cole, what does Stewart bring to the table?
Yeah, and I think that Mike Green, in my opinion, is the best edge rusher still available. Was he a great fit for the Cincinnati Bengals? No, absolutely not, because I really think Mike Green is more of a natural as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. So we know the Cincinnati Bengals, they're through and through a 4-3 scheme, and that's why I thought Jack Sawyer would be a great fit. Now, I had Jack Sawyer just below Shemar Stewart here. Shemar Stewart, I actually wanted to see him in a 3-4, but not be a stand-up outside linebacker, actually have his hand in the dirt as a little bit of an undersized D-end and be the outside guy of the three on the line. He's a little bit of an odd build. He's kind of stout for an edge rusher. He's more of a run stuffer. He gets penetration and can get in the backfield, but he doesn't have great sack numbers. He's just a guy who gets a lot of pressures. Can he turn the pressures into sacks in the NFL? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, but he's going to need teammates who can clean it up. But he's physical. He'll help them stop the run, which will help the Cincinnati Bengals at time. It gets them more physical. So good pick to go defense. Good pick to go edge rusher. Better fit than Mike Green would have been. But can he actually put up first round type of edge rusher numbers? I don't know. Hendrickson is still by far and away their number one guy there.
So I'm actually going to break down the Seahawks for a second here, because this is another team, fans of the Climate Tech NFL Inc. prediction show. It seemed like Cole and I were talking about the Seahawks almost every week, if not every other week. It was just one of those teams, Cole, would you agree, that was almost seemed to be constantly on our radar?
I think there were a lot of teams that were on our radar, but a lot of those West Coast teams who sometimes tend to get some of those 4 o'clock, 4:25 time slots or later time slots. They tend to pop up at times.
Yep. And with that being the case, it just seemed like we were constantly discussing them. This was a team 2 years ago made the playoffs. Last year made a hell of a run towards the playoffs. Didn't quite get in, but they were right there. Pete Carroll no longer there. So some switches have been made over the last 2 seasons. But coming into this season, I feel they've been aggressive, but I feel like they've been aggressive with the wrong guys. And I'll say because of this. To me, Sam Darnold is not a difference maker. He was pretty much figured out by the end of the year last year in Minnesota. I truly believe that. So now, the Seahawks going all in with Sam Darnold, the quarterback. Love their running back room. I think it's stout, without a doubt. I'm a huge, Kenneth Walker, the third guy. Very big fan of him. Partnering, though, in the receiver room with Jackson Smith and Jibba, bringing in Cooper Kupp, to me, it seems like, hey, that could really work really, really well, or maybe not at all. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, another guy who's always kind of been there, kind of hasn't been there, really has never stepped up, despite being somebody that gets drafted in a fantasy football draft, which at the end of the day doesn't mean too much, right? So the Seahawks here now, with this, okay, Sam Darnold, it just seems like a reach to me. So what do they need to do in Seattle to get them back into the playoffs? Again, in a pretty tough division with the Rams, the Niners, there's really no cupcakes there. I'll throw it out to the board here. Cole, go ahead.
Well, you're right. Sam Darnold's probably even a slight step back from Geno Smith, and Cooper Kupp's a slot receiver, more or less. Now he can play on the outside as well, but I think at this point he's a step back because you have JSN in slot, who's fantastic. So then you don't have DK Metcalf now. So I think offensively they're taking some steps back. They're going to need JSN to quickly get a connection with Sam Darnold, and Kenneth Walker's going to have to step up, but it's going to be offensive line and it's going to be that defense. I mean, I like Derek Harmon maybe on the interior of that defensive line, keep him up in the Northwest, the Oregon product. Maybe you can touch on offensive line, but they're going to have to find a way to get physical. I think if the Seahawks are going to try to take a step forward because they took a step back at skill positions.
Just to throw it out there, talking about offensive line, Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State has been tied to Seattle quite a bit. It would be a guard. So
I love a good North Dakota State lineman, farm boy.
Let's see. The pick is being announced.
Also, schedule release May 14th. The NFL just dropped that out of nowhere. Oh, you called it, Brandon.
Look at that. That guy's corn-fed.
There you go. So Brandon just called it. We'll start with Cole, as we always do. What will they get with Zabel?
I mean, he played offensive tackle at North Dakota State, but then I think his natural build, kind of a leaner build, you're going to see him kick inside. I mean, he's an aggressive North Dakota State type of player. We've seen a lot of offensive linemen who have come from North Dakota State who are aggressive, but definitely a little bit leaner to be able to stay out there on the outside. I like the thought of him kicking to the inside, and I think it's going to help Seattle out. Again, I look at this as a reach. I think Zabel's more of a day two guy that's going here in round one, but again, was getting the hype to go early. People aren't going to like where I have him. He was my 100th overall prospect in this class because, like I said, not a true tackle, more of a guard, but I didn't think him kicking inside to guard, he was as good as quite a few other guard prospects. So number 100 for me, going at number 18. Yeah, it's the type of position that the Seattle Seahawks need to address. But again, I think that they could have done better. But like Brandon said, he's been tied to them. Somewhat no surprise that it's Zabel.
Well, a couple years ago when Kenny Pinnick.
You mean Browns
Pickett.
quarterback?
Is this what happens when I go 2 days without coffee, right? Yeah. Current Cleveland Browns quarterback, but overall, Kenny Pickett, when he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, fans of the show, they know Dom. He's our guy, right? He's impossible not to love. But that might have been the most lovable Dom Cleary moment of all time when Kenny Pickett was selected.
Super Bowl.
Dom, we're 2 picks away from having maybe the reverse reaction out of you if the Steelers pick Sanders. I haven't brought it up in about 10 picks. I wanted to kind of let that conversation cool for a few minutes. But my God, man, we're right there. We're 2 picks
Yeah,
away.
Could
it happen?
Now we're in the territory where I can't avoid the conversation.
Yeah, I was trying to let it go for a little bit.
No, it's fine. No, I appreciate the effort. So we are going to here's what's going to happen. They're going to say Shadur Sanders, and they're going to criticize the pick, and we're going to criticize the pick. And then we're going to get to pick 27, and you're going to see something shine in my eye. That's going to be me convincing myself the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to the Super Bowl with a guy I previously didn't like. That's what tends to happen every year. And it's hard, like the inner fan in me, slowly creeps out. And as a guy that I loved watching Colorado play. I love Deion Sanders. I almost brought my Deion Sanders jersey here as a joke, but I used to wear Deion Sanders hoodies. So I love the Sanders family.
I always hated him. I don't know why. It just made my personality.
Yeah,
I guess. I was not a fan.
My dad loved Barry Bonds and Deion Sanders, and I was taught to like both of them.
Loved Barry Bonds, huge Barry Bonds guy. But off topic, go ahead.
Two of the biggest off the field issue personality guys that you could possibly have. I was born in the.
I was a big T.O. guy. I mean, some of my favorite players were T.O.
I like T.O.
Brandon Edwards, Colin Winslow. But yeah, go ahead.
But you're going to see me slowly convince myself, well, if he can just get the ball out to George Pickens, you're going to see me convince myself. So that's where we're going to be. But we'll approach that when it's time.
Well, let's approach instead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, so again, for the umpteenth time, and everybody's watching NFL Climate Tech, NFL prediction show, they know how Cole and I feel about Baker Mayfield. But clearly, Brandon, Tampa Bay feels Mayfield is their long-term answer, back-to-back trips to the playoffs. What are they going to bring in with this pick? Still got plenty of time to go, 5+ minutes before they make this pick. So really, please take your time. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know you said earlier you feel like that division's kind of open and the Falcons have made a push towards them. But, what do you think when it comes to Tampa Bay? I still don't feel like they're for real, but they're getting the job done.
I think Baker Mayfield definitely caps you, but they're certainly not looking to take quarterback here. I don't think Shadur Sanders provides you much more of
another
receiver than that.
Another receiving threat was my thought.
But no, I don't think you go receiver.
Okay.
The worst linebacking core in the NFL last year statistically, and the best linebacker available, or the best linebacker in the draft is still there in Jahad Campbell. You don't think twice about it. Go ahead and send that in. There's a few different spots on the defensive side that I think you could go with them. Certainly corner is aging for them as well. And no corners have gone at this point. We're almost at pick 20.
Not a one.
Particularly, I'm surprised at Will Johnson. Maybe the medicals are really starting to scare teams away. But Jahad Campbell, send it in. If you guys disagree, let me know. But that was one of the weak spot on a relatively solid defense last year. Just struggled in stopping the run from that position, did not have a lot of support behind that great front four anchored by Vita Vea. Again, I think it's a no-brainer.
Cole, who are the Buccaneers going to pick? And we are 2 picks away from possibly seeing our man over here lose his mind.
Yeah, well, the Buccaneers, they have been the lucky team to be in the worst division in the NFL in recent times. And they've been the fortunate team that could go 9-8. And practically be 500, and they get the 4th seed in the NFC because they won their division. And the Falcons are on the rise. That division's completely wide open. Baker Mayfield has just been good enough. The Buccaneers have been just good enough to have a winning record and be able to win their division and make it to the playoffs. So credit to Baker for what he's done. I think he's matured and he's improved, but I think defensive wise, they're not super impressive. Chris Godwin, his injury last year was kind of eye-opening. So they could definitely use linebacker. Campbell could be an option. I think it's probably wide receiver here. I could really see them trying to get a Matthew Golden type guy with speed to vertically stretch the field.
Tell me if I'm wrong, though. They did just pay Godwin.
That'd be something.
Mike Evans is still on the team. I don't think it's going to be the highest priority. I don't hate the idea of it. I would just personally be surprised if this wasn't a pick on the defensive side of the ball.
To me, it seems like a sexy pick if they go receiver. Clearly, it's a pick for flash. But no, I'm with you on this one, Brandon. But let's see what it actually turns out to be. Wow, no, there it is. It is another receiver. You guys know him well. Wow, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. Holy cow, Baker Mayfield right now has to be licking his chops If there was ever a guy who knew about an Ohio State receiver, it is Cole McDaniel.
Emeka Egbuka, like I said, this great pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Credit to them. Like I said, my 6th overall prospect in this class. Everybody overlooked Egbuka a little bit because Marvin Harrison Jr. was in the same room as him when, a couple years ago. And then Egbuka had the year where he had the little bit of an injury, a little bit of a knock about half the year, a little banged up, so he didn't put up like incredible numbers. And then last year, it's like, okay, this is Egbuka's year. And Egbuka was one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in all of college football. But Jeremiah Smith, the freshman who is a freak, and it's hard to believe that it's 3 years of him in college football before he can go to the NFL because he's NFL ready right now, would have been the number 1 wide receiver coming off the board. But Egbuka now leaves Ohio State as the all-time leading pass catcher in career history for the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's so good. My player comps for him were Jackson Smith-Njigba and Amon-Ra St. Brown, 2 very good slot receivers, and I think there's a good chance that those 3 guys are the top 3 slot receivers in the NFL for many years to come. He's bigger than both of them, but the route running ability, the ability to catch in traffic, everything about Egbuka is incredible. And the most impressive thing for him is he is the most aggressive run blocking wide receiver, fearless as a run blocker. The Tampa Bay, they just got a good steal here. You have Mike Evans on the outside. I think Brandon's correct that they had paid Chris Godwin. They have Jalen McMillan's probably now bumped down to the 4th receiver. Egbuka's your slot and your number 3 guy there. I think there's other teams I would have preferred to see him at, but Baker's going to be licking his chops.
Brandon, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, does this pick make you a little bit nervous?
Nervous, no, because Atlanta's still going to be in their own lane. They're still going to, this isn't going to affect their development as a team. Emeka Egbuka is an incredible player, and this is a very good value for him. I agree that he is the 2nd best wide receiver in this draft, and to Cole's credit, was absolutely getting overlooked because of the guys that he played with. It still feels like a little bit of an odd fit for me. I know Chris Godwin's getting older. He's had some injury problems. Egbuka, you're just kind of sharpening a strength there, and you're giving Baker Mayfield absolutely no excuses. If he can't now get to that next level with this trio of receivers and with an up-and-coming Bucky Irving, then he's just not going to do it. So maybe this is a pick to be like, hey, do we need to evaluate our quarterback situation in the next 2 to 3 years? Let's just eliminate every other variable and do that. Defensively, they're still going to struggle. You can grab linebacker maybe later on in this draft. There's still some definite holes they need to plug before they're particularly competitive. I don't think they're making a Super Bowl run anytime soon anyway. They did, again, they're in not a great division. They did hang with Washington still. That was a good playoff game that they played this year, that they did ultimately lose to a team that went to the NFC Championship. Still a good team. Maybe Emeka puts that offense over to where they're finally getting into that 2nd round of the playoffs more consistently. But overall, I just think there was bigger needs that needed to be addressed for Tampa.
I would agree with that. Dom, does this pick make Tampa Bay, a legit Super Bowl contender in the NFC?
No, I still think there's concerns about that linebacking core. I think the defensive line is pretty decent. They made a few good picks a few years ago in the interior defensive line. It adds to the weapons for sure. I mean, Baker has proven that he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL after that last season with the Browns, and then a year after jumping around. He's proven that he's a mainstay in the NFL. You add more weapons around him, the team's going to put points on the board. They're going to win their division if he continues to play the way that he did, and if that team continues to be good as well, or his weapons continue to be as good as they typically are. Egbuka adds to that. I think, I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender, but again, they get a good draw in the playoffs. Maybe an injury or 2 goes their way. They can find themselves in the NFC Championship game, but things have to really fall their way. They have to have the right cards.
You're 100% right. Yeah. Because here's why it's not that crazy, guys. Come on. Washington was the number 2 pick last year in the draft. Nobody in their right mind is going to sit here and tell me they predicted the Washington Commanders to be in the NFC Championship game.
No, but they changed quarterback. A tiger is not going to change its stripes. Baker Mayfield is not suddenly going to turn into something he's not. Jaden Daniels was a complete unknown going into that, and we had an ownership and a complete philosophy change in Washington.
I'll give you that.
That is not something that you are going to see every day. Now, Vince, I'm going to take over the role because you're Denver Broncos. are coming up here with pick number 20. Not necessarily who you think they're going to take, as they are milking this clock. They've got 40 seconds left and still haven't picked anybody.
They're definitely getting calls.
I'm sure they are. And as I said it, who do you want the Denver Broncos to take?
I just kind of feel like if they're not going to utilize Williams at running back, go ahead and just get another one you're actually going to play.
Williams is gone.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If you're not okay, you didn't use him. So I'm sorry I misspoke. My point being, you didn't utilize what you had. All right, I knew he was gone. My apology. But if you didn't utilize him, go get somebody who you are going to utilize. Because Bo Nix eventually is going to need that number 2 threat to be able to hand the ball off to. Okay, let's say he's a passing quarterback, so his number 1 threat is always going to be a receiver. His number 2 threat, he needs to have that at all times.
Can I sell you on another North Carolina running back?
Sure.
Amarian Hampton, I think, is the most likely selection here. He's definitely not my favorite running back in this class. It does feel like he's gotten a lot of hype lately, where we were looking at early second round for him in a particularly deep running back class. I think you can wait if you're Denver, but it seems like Amarian's getting a lot of love there. But again, a Quinshon Judkins, a Caleb Johnson, there are plenty of good guys later on that you could pick up. But I do agree, running back is crucial. Bo Nix was successful without a very good running game last year, led by, was it Audric Estime, I believe, was the lead back when all was said and done.
See, here's the thing, too, with me, and I'll make this quick. Once I got out of the first 10 picks with any draft, I'm a big pick for need kind of guy, right? I feel like if you're a playmaker, a huge name or whatever, you're probably going in the first 10. So at this point of the draft, right, I'm a big need guy. So I'll actually let you guys make the selection here. Cole, I saw a big thumbs down. You're going to have to explain why we got the old thumbs down there. But, yeah, just in general, I'm big on need, if that makes any sense.
Well,
and I felt, again, I'll say it one more last time. They blew it with Williams, but we've talked about that to death.
Well, credit to the Denver Broncos. They outperformed because of Sean Payton's scheme what they had on their roster last year. And they're headed in the right direction because they have a mentality that they now know how to win, and their defense really performed. Bo Nix did well. They need a running back bad. It's probably either Amarian Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. It's probably one of those 4 guys. I'm expecting running back here. I put my thumbs down for Amarian Hampton because it would likely be him of that group, because he's been the consensus number 2 running back, but he was my number 71 prospect. So if they don't go running back here, look out for J.K. Dobbins maybe in free agency as well.
He is still unsigned, which is very surprising to me after the year that he had. Again, I know injury is still a big deal, but anyway, Denver Broncos are selecting Vince. It is Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas, the first corner off the board.
I'll take that as well. Huge Champ Bailey guy. Obviously, Denver's been known for shutdown quarters over the years. I'll take another one. I wanted running back, but as Cole and you both said, very deep running back class. So you guys tell me. You guys go ahead. Cole, Dom, Brandon. What can I expect out of this young man?
You're going to expect a really good corner. He was my number 3 corner in this class. I think that Will Johnson is more solid on the outside. Obviously, Travis Hunter was my number 1, but so technically Hunter would be the first one off the board, just a weird prospect because playing both sides. But Barron, even though he has the ability and the ball skills to play on the outside, I don't think he has the size to do so. I think he's going to be more of a nickel. So you're probably going to see him play some more nickel for the Denver Broncos, but on a defense that performed well last year, I think he's going to be an asset because he's strong at jumping routes underneath. I think he's going to break up plenty of passes. I think he's going to get some interceptions. So they should have gone running back probably. Yes, such a deep class. You can technically wait on it, but I think Denver, like the Las Vegas Raiders, who they didn't wait, they went with Genty. I think you kind of have to make that move. And I think there's a handful of guys they could have gone for. I would have liked to have seen Denver make the move there. But like I said, them holding off, if they hold off long enough, they have been linked to J.K. Dobbins. So him potentially staying in that division would be intriguing. Dobbins, despite the injuries, he was very productive when he was on the field last year, and he had a good bounce back year.
Dom, as a Denver Broncos fan, you tell me, what am I getting with Barron?
Yeah, the size concerns on the outside. I think Cole hit it. right on the nail of that. He's probably going to be more nickel. The weird cornerback class, I really don't have much for you here. I do a really bad job evaluating cornerbacks because I'm a lineman guy. I can break down even a linebacker for you, but when it comes to cornerbacks, it's hard for me to tell jumping from college to pro who was going to be that guy. Oh, Lord.
Well, they're showing the Pittsburgh Steelers pick is in, and then it's focused right in on Sanders. So that might tell you all you need to know. And again, man, that just seems to me like the most opposite. Mike Tomlin's happy. That seems like the most
it might be Hampton.
Opposite Pittsburgh Steelers pick you can make. Brandon, please, though, finish it off for me with Denver, with Berrien. What can I expect?
Yeah, with Jahdae Barron, again, just like Cole, my third cornerback behind Johnson and Travis Hunter. The good news is you've already got Patrick Surtain, so you weren't necessarily looking for that true shutdown outside corner. So you can afford somebody like Jahdae, who's a little more flexible, that you can put in the nickel and then still have him play outside when you need him to. I don't think he's a full-time outside corner, though we did a lot of that at Texas. You can put him out there in a pinch and feel okay about it, right? You can have him start in spots, move him around, have him be a chess piece. You're making a strength to strength in Denver with how good that defense was. I'm surprised they didn't go offense in one way or the other. Not necessarily shocked they didn't go running back, again, considering the depth that we're talking about. I think another receiver would have done them very well. There's some real talent still left there in Matthew Golden and Luther Burden. But at the end of the day, solid pick. I think it was maybe a best player available situation in their book, which is why they decided to take him, because Barron is very high on a lot of these draft teams' big boards here. So, but it's time, Dom.
So here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers. The pick is in. We have danced around it all night. Pittsburgh known for being incredible draft pickers over the years. I wish I could come up with a better word, but I'll go draft pickers. They've been amazing. So they go with the tackle, Derek Harmon out of Oregon. Great little pick, actually. Cole?
Yeah, I had to see if I could get Dom's heart racing a little bit. I am a slight bit ahead of you guys, I think, on the TV. So Derek Harmon, this is a very Pittsburgh-like pick, right? When everybody thinks that, hey, they're weak at quarterback, they need a quarterback, or they need to go offense. What do the Steelers always do every single time? They oftentimes go on the defensive end. So they got Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, who actually I think really fits the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was one of my main fits for him. He was my number 3 defensive tackle in this class, just behind the 2 Michigan men and Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. Derek Harmon, he's a big body who can stuff the run, but I didn't look at him as a true nose tackle. I actually think he fits in quite well next to Keanu Benton, who I think is big, physical, can be right on the inside, and you put Derek Harmon right next to him, and I think for many, many years to come that they're going to be able to stop the run. And it's just an embarrassment of riches sometimes when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and their defense. They're always stout,
yep,
and they continue to add to that factor of being stout. So even if they don't have a good quarterback this next year and they can't score points, at least it could be low-scoring games, and they can give themselves a chance to, like the typical Mike Tomlin way, win enough games to be above 500, probably maybe sneak into the playoffs. Or are they going to go very far at this point? No, but again, they're not going to have high draft picks because they're typically going to be a team that has a winning record, even if they can't quite compete offensively.
The second I saw Tomlin hop up and slap hands, I knew that you were getting Sanders. I knew you were covered. So how you feeling right now, big man?
Good. I mean, this is a Cam Hayward replacement down the line. That's all this is. She wearing a
Mighty Ducks. I'm loving it. Loving it. Yes, you are.
I know I've seen
she on the
every time I'm with you, we see a Mighty Ducks jersey.
That picture went viral. So that got us more views than anything else we did in the entire month of March. So as you and I busted our ass for 18 hours covering college basketball, the thing that got us the most hits was a picture of the people dressed up with like the Mighty Ducks.
New Mexico fans loved my tweets on Threads.
Oh, nice.
On Threads.
I had a blast, by the way. It was a stretch, but it was good.
But
so honestly, how you feeling?
Yeah, no, I feel good. I mean, this is a Cam Hayward replacement. Hayward's going to play less and less snaps, especially this year. I don't know if he fits the heads up nose tackle. He seems more like he could run a 3. The Steelers, it's more of like an inside 4 technique. Just because they have 5 down linemen essentially with those 2 outside rushers. Really weird formation that they run with where they have a heads up and then 2 inside 4s. Really weird formation that they run, and then they have the two pass rushers. I think he fits in that stereotypical defensive end Cam Hayward spot. But Cam Hayward's there. They really like Benton, so we'll see where he fits. But again, they usually do well when it comes to interior linemen. They already have 2 of the better pass. They probably have the best pass rushing tandem in the AFC North. So you got to be happy there, and then you bring in a little bit more, especially with the run stopping at defensive tackle. That kind of capitalizes. You have a guy that's aging with an expiring contract here soon. So I think it's a good move. You could have tried going with the running back. They don't have a running back, and you don't have a quarterback, and they decided to go defensive tackle.
Jalen Warren slander from you.
Yeah, he was the better running back. He was better than Najee.
So Jalen Warren is a really nice third down back, but the way that the Steelers like playing football, they don't want a third down back as their primary back. They want a bulldozing guy. Najee Harris wasn't super physical. At times he was, but he went down at first contact a lot. So I thought that Hampton may have been that pick there. He wasn't. A lot of running backs still yet to go. They don't have a second round pick, so most likely a running back on day 2 tomorrow late. So we'll see how that goes for them. But they do need another a number 1 running back. They don't have that yet. I understand everyone likes Warren. We like the third down backs, inside zone, inside zone. But they don't have a running back that's going to run gap. They don't have a running back that can run power, that can run physical between the tackles and make a play after contact. They don't have that. Warren's not that guy. He's a great outside playmaker. He does good in pass protection. He's a really good running back to have on your team. But he's not a guy for your first and second down, hey, lower your helmet and give me 5. He's not that guy.
Brandon
I do think Warren, by the way, I do think Warren played more physical than Najee, though. Najee was the bigger player, but he liked to didn't play physical. East and West. Warren got north and south.
He's very north and south, but that being said, I don't think his body size allows him to be an every down back. And I think he does really good in those third downs. He does good in those screen plays. Pass protection, he's great, Cole. I think that's one thing where what they have with him, he's great on pass protection as well. It isn't necessarily, he can do everything an every down back can. He just doesn't have the size for it. You need someone physical between the tackles. The Steelers have always had that. They had Jerome Bettis when he looked like a left guard, being their number 2 guy, then Speedy Willie Parker, who wasn't a total great running back.
Parker, man, it's a blast in the past.
You like that one?
Bam Morris, Willie Parker.
Yeah, and then like after them, they had Mendenhall and they had Redmond. I mean, Redmond was built like a dump truck, and they were just giving the ball for first and second down. He'd get him 5 yards, and then Mendenhall would go in and actually get yards.
You know who was my all-time favorite Pittsburgh Steelers running back? Man, this is before you were born, and it's not Franco Harris. So one that I got to see play live. I'll give you a guess. It's not Bettis.
Well, so is it the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, definitely late 90s.
Is it Staley?
Close. Barry Foster.
Yeah,
Barry Foster, one of my all-time favorites.
I have a ticket from like 2002 when I was a little kid of him on it. Where they would have like players on the tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the running back. It's either him or Staley. I don't remember which one.
Love Foster. Yeah. So Brandon, 2 questions here for you. Number 1, I agree with Cole. This is a situation with Pittsburgh, the rich getting richer. It doesn't matter where they pick in the draft. They always seem to just get a stud handed to them. I feel like, again, that is the case again with them this year. So that's number 1. Number 2, what do you think? And I almost call them San Diego for the umpteenth time. But what do you think the Chargers are going to do here?
Well, the good thing with Harmon is he was one of the best players still left available in a very deep defensive tackle draft, by the way. But with Hayward still being there, you have time to develop him a little bit. If you want to knock on Harmon for anything, he only had 1 year actually starting at the collegiate level, albeit for Oregon, who has had a lot of very good defensive tackles come through that program. So it makes sense, but now you can let him sit a little bit, learn from one of the best who has ever done it in Hayward, and really kind of just continue to carry that torch for Pittsburgh and be a cornerstone of that defense. Makes sense why they decided to go that route if they were not going to take quarterback, which will again turn into another conversation with Rodgers still not being signed anywhere. The Chargers, a few different ways they can go. I think we need to, similar to like what we were talking about with Baker, we got to get rid of the excuses for Justin Herbert. He had, to be fair, last year was Ladd McConkey, and that was really it when it came to offensive receiving options. Yeah. I would love to see Luther Burden step in here from Missouri. Had a little bit of a weird down year last year in Missouri's offense after an incredible 2023. Big-bodied, physical, true X receiver that can play on the outside. Ladd, you can still put in the outside, but now all of a sudden he turns into an excellent chess piece where you can kind of move him around the field and take advantage of whatever matchups you have with him. And you saw how good he was last year, specifically in the playoffs, where he went out for almost 200 yards in that game that they lost by himself.
Yeah.
So getting that offense some more help and getting the discount on Luther Burden because of the down here he had last year when he clearly has all the physical traits that you want in a true number one wide receiver. Again, I think you send it and forget it. But again, they could look defensively, definitely need some help on the defensive line. Tight end, they could also add a weapon, but unless you're going to reach for Harold Fannin at this point, not reach talent-wise, but reach in that I don't think the NFL is going to select him before day 2. I think you got to go receiver.
So I got to say something here. Cole and I talk about it a lot, and I feel like the NFC is wide open. Okay, going into next year, I feel like they're still wide open. The Eagles could take a step back at any time. I mean, yeah, they went on a hell of a run, but I do feel like the NFC is wide open. Okay, let me just make that said. What Cole and I have spoken about a lot on our show over the years is, to me, the AFC is not wide open. To me, the AFC is very, very top heavy. You know, more than likely you have the Ravens coming out of the north. You have the Bills coming out of the east. You have, especially now with the Houston Texans, right? And then you would have the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, I always miss the most obvious one. But so you know for a fact, going to the playoffs next year, you can almost bet money on it. Okay? You're going to have the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Bills, without a doubt. And it's always that race for those final 3 wild card selections. And to me, the 5th best team in the AFC year in and year out has been the Chargers. And what are they going to do to make that jump? Looks like they picked a running back, as you said, Amarian Hampton, out of North Carolina. You thought he was going to go and be a Denver Bronco. Instead, he's going to go to that division, but he's going to play for the Broncos' enemy, the Chargers. You know, I'll make this quick here with the Chargers. Is that going to help them solidify not only being the 5th best team in the AFC and guaranteeing another trip to the playoffs? Like, what are they going to get out of Hampton? Did they just make the right selection? Cole, what do we know about Hampton?
Well, Hampton was generally the consensus number 2 running back in this class. And for me, though, that definitely was not where I had him. I believe, and I can double check this, but I'm pretty sure he was my number 9 running back overall in this class, and such a deep group and talented group. I was nowhere near as high on him. In fact, one of my player comparisons for him, which is funny enough that he goes to the Los Angeles Chargers, is that I think his ceiling is Zach Charbonnet, who, remember, Charbonnet is the backup running back for the Seattle Seahawks.
That's a weird
behind Kenneth Walker.
Okay.
My floor for him is Isaiah Spiller, who Isaiah Spiller was just with the Chargers for several years, couldn't get past 3rd string on their depth chart, but was like number 2 or number 3 in his class coming out. He was a bigger-bodied running back who was productive in college at Texas A&M, but he plays the game at 1 speed. I don't see the explosiveness. Hampton, same thing. At college, he's very productive. I mean, he had a good career at North Carolina. There's the ability for him to be, I don't know, a good 2nd running back on a roster. But as for being the starter, do I see that for him long-term? Do I see a high ceiling for him? I don't. I think he got overvalued and overhyped by the size and the stats. And I think we're going to see him not quite perform at the next level. Hope I'm wrong. I hope he has a better career. But him and Najee together make no sense at all. They don't complement each other. I think they're both guys who I wish Najee for his size was more physical. I wish Hampton was more explosive. Those are two running backs I wish I'd see more from. I just don't love this pick for the Chargers.
Dom, is this the guy that's going to make the Chargers the second best team in that division yet again, right behind Kansas City?
No, I'm not as low on him as Cole is, but I'm also not as high on him. I mean, I don't have him as my number 9. I had him as my number 5. I mean, probably could have been my number 6, honestly. I like seeing him go going north and south. When he's uphill, I mean, he's hard to bring down. It's hard to see him being a bulldozer in the NFL against linebackers the size that they are in this league. And it's hard for him seeing him outrun linebackers as well. I don't see the speed. So I think he could be stuck in a spot. I think he could be stuck as a Najee Harris that doesn't have the 1,000-yard seasons. Funny enough, he's going to be joining Najee Harris in L.A. And I did the same thing. Yeah,
the old Washington Redskins.
I don't do that.
I'm good for a few of those.
Yeah, but I'm always for the San Diego Chargers, though, so I'm going to keep calling them that, and the Oakland Raiders. But with the Chargers, I think that they have the most cathartic running back combo in the league.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like when you see them running, it's like quicksand is bringing them slowly to the earth.
It does seem like a reach with a first runner.
I think that I think I'm a little higher than Cole is, but not as high as most. There were a few guys that I still liked over him. And considering he was the entire offense for North Carolina, and their offense wasn't very good. So, I mean, that really tells you much about that team.
Listen, it appears that I'm higher on Omari and Hampton than everybody else. He was my running back 2 out of this group. Very strange fit. I don't understand the Chargers taking him with Najee being there. It seems like that was the direction they were going. This seems like Jim Harbaugh just wanting to continue to feed into we're going to be hard-nosed, smash-mouth. People aren't going to want to tackle our backs. Whatever. I guess that's the identity that they're going for. I do think Hampton was still a first-round talent with the correct team. You've got to get him behind a good offensive line, and you've got to get him into his own running scheme. The one place that he really did struggle that I saw was with his vision and being able to find the open holes. So he needs that direction. He needs those to be obvious. I'm not as worried about the speed and the strength as you guys are. He's not the fastest running back in this class. He does not have to be. But playing in the ACC, playing still against some solid defense, some good, strong defenders. Like, he does legitimately barrel through people, and I'm not worried about that translating to the NFL level. We talk about floors and ceilings. I do understand the Isaiah Spiller comp, but I'm not saying that that's impossible. We're looking on the high end. I see more of a David Montgomery, where you're going to struggle if he is your lead back.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like the only guy you're feeding the ball to. But again, in the correct system where you have a good change
have him
of
as
pace
a tandem back.
with him,
I agree with you completely.
he could be very successful and really open up those lanes and kind of optimize the kind of back that he is. He did not go there with LA. Now, I think any running back will have a chance to succeed with Harbaugh running the show, but considering the fact that they still really need pass catchers, it kind of blows my mind that they're going all in on the run the ball first mentality, despite the fact that Herbert's there. Makes me kind of question what the coaching staff sees in Herbert. Maybe he really isn't this top 5 guy that we are kind of anticipating.
Jim Harbaugh likes to run the ball.
They want to take the ball out of his hands.
Well,
which is shocking.
Well, here's the thing too, and we'll keep it here for a second. You know, Jim Harbaugh loves to run the ball, and that's been that way for years. So maybe that has something to do with it. But guys, and Cole, I definitely want to get you in on this here. You know, I said it before: Baltimore, Buffalo, Chargers, Chiefs. Those are the locks. I think again next year. You know, with Houston as well. So there's your top 5. Okay, so we're gonna have a little night 2 fun, night 1 here, real quick. If we all agree those are your top 5 again in the AFC. Then you're looking at teams like Miami, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, all kind of hanging on for those final 2 wild card picks. If somebody was asking you tonight, saying, hey, we're going to keep those top 5 where they're at, who would be the 2 final wild card picks in the AFC?
I mean, first of all, I think the Chargers fall off.
Really? So I disagree. Okay.
As much as well, they lose Joey Bosa too.
Yeah,
and they didn't address edge rusher. I think your Denver Broncos are on the rise at the moment. So
you're gonna keep them in that top 7?
I think they replace the Chargers probably.
Wow. Okay.
I think there's a good chance that the Miami Dolphins do sneak in if they stay healthy. But I just think that last spot is going to be maybe a surprise, like the Cleveland Browns taking a good jump and sneaking and getting the 7th spot, or the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite their quarterback issues with a good defense, they get in and get the 7th spot. Maybe the Bengals, they can stay healthy. It very may well come from the AFC North because there's still a lot of good teams there.
I think it's the Bengals for sure. I mean, I would say that I would actually put, if you're going to say the Chargers are going to drop off in that 5 slot, I don't even hesitate to say the Bengals would pick up the old 5 slot there. So, well, Brandon, the Packers, who they taking?
Green Bay is regularly the most difficult team to kind of mock who they're going to take because their philosophy on both skill position players and defensive players just in general seems to not really ever line up with the league's standard. Who should they take? Will Johnson is still sitting here with Jair Alexander's future kind of being in limbo. I think that's a very obvious spot. I would have absolutely loved Emeka Egbuka here for Green Bay, but they've got 3 or 4 number 2 wide receivers on this roster right now. I keep saying his name, Luther Burden, I think would be a great fit here as well. They need a number 1 guy that you can throw the ball up to on the outside. They got a bunch of number 2s right now, and that's not sustainable.
Well, no matter who it is, I do love the fact, I mention it every year around this time when it's the city of the pick. I love the fact that they do this. I used to hate, almost my entire childhood in high school and in college. Every draft was in New York, right? Mm-hmm. Same spot, Music City, all that stuff. This to me is so much better how they are bouncing from city to city. It's a lot of fun. I used to hate having to watch Fireman out of the Jets every single year. The NFL draft, I'd focusing on him when the Jets made their pick. It was so stupid after a while. The NBA still does that in New York with, they still do that, right? So the whole point is bouncing around. Who's the guy's name? He's famous too. He's a famous. Oh, Spike Lee.
Yep.
With the Knicks, and they always focus on
Spike Lee.
They
won tonight.
I love the fact they're up 2-1 in that series with the Pistons.
Championship,
right?
Here we come.
2-1 with the Pistons, right? Correct. Yeah.
Shaking in my boots.
Pistons should have won game 1 of that series.
How many wins they have over the top teams in the NBA this year? Do you remember?
They have 2 NBA titles. They've been to the finals.
When was that?
Chatty's Pizzeria tomorrow night, guys. 5 to 7 p.m.
Y'all, this pick has been in for like 3 minutes. It's just...
It's the hometown city. That's what they do.
Oh, yeah.
So it is Golden. So they want
another wide receiver too. Let's go.
Matthew
Good job,
Golden, wide receiver, Texas. It seems to, and right now, Aaron Rodgers is saying, "Huh? Like, why didn't you guys ever pick receivers when I was playing?"
Oh, he's not worried about that. He's looking at country clubs in Pittsburgh right now.
What the hell he's doing right now? But yeah, I mean, so Jordan Love gets the threat. Khalil McDaniel. Where did you have this guy on your big board?
Yeah, I mean, I had Matthew Golden a little bit lower than some other guys. I mean, surprisingly in this, like I had Tez Johnson above him. I'm actually really high on Torrey Horton. He's probably going to be like a 4th round pick just because of the injury he had. And he's been heavily linked to the Green Bay Packers. So I'm a little surprised they're going here early. But number 46 is where I had Matthew Golden on my big board. Really value him as more of a day 2 type of guy, but knew he was going to go 1st round just because of his speed. He's not the biggest receiver on the outside. He doesn't really project as a true slot guy. He can maybe align there sometimes, but he's just going to stretch the field. He's going to give them a vertical threat. I agree with Brandon. He's not a true number 1 in the NFL. I think actually Christian Watson probably still is the number 1 above him, and Watson's been inconsistent, and he's had his injury issues. So Golden's going to be on the opposite side on the outside, and then you're going to see Wicks still get some time out there, and Jaden Reed is their guy in the slot. So gives you speed, gives Jordan Love another target, but I actually would have liked to have seen them maybe go on the defensive end and then touch on wide receiver a little bit later if they were going to make this move.
I think they're gonna be nasty next year. I think the Vikings are gonna drop back significantly with JJ McCarthy as their quarterback.
Sure,
McCarthy as their quarterback. I think the Packers are gonna step up more than people realize. I really do.
that's an opinion.
Yeah,
You're
that's mine.
entitled to
Yeah,
that.
uh-huh.
You're allowed to be wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just be super quick. You guys,
No, we got all kinds of time. It's like another 20 minutes before they make a pick.
it's
So
just
stupid.
Have yourself a day. You're good.
again, trying to figure out who the Packers are going to draft is a completely like useless exercise. They have their types. They have obviously specific traits that they look for, specific measurables that if you don't hit, you're just not going to be considered. And it's just another example of that. Matthew Golden, fine number 2 receiver. He'd be a great Y next to a lot of other tandems in the NFL. But again, at best, I think you got insurance for when Christian Watson inevitably misses 5 to 7 games in a season. Great, you just spent your first overall pick on that when you still have guys that could potentially fill that X role. Hell, I would have rather them waited and grabbed somebody like Jalen Royals in round 2 or 3 if this was going to be the plan to address wide receiver and get a corner now here where that thins out much quicker than this wide receiver class does. So again, baffling to me. Another year where we don't really understand Green Bay's philosophy here. But best of luck to them. I hope that all their fans there are excited. This was their big splash hosting in Green Bay. Good luck to you.
I don't know. I think they're a good little football team. Dom, Matthew Golden, receiver out of Texas.
I think it's hard to slander a team when they think that this is the best wide receiver available, right? I mean, I know that all the slander against him or why this might be a questionable pick. I know there's a few guys that you guys have above him, and I get that. I mean, I had him at number 5, but not of the guys available, but overall, again, if it's hard because these guys do so much scouting, they meet with these players, they watch hours and hours and hours of film. So it's hard to say, oh, they picked the wrong wide receiver. This guy's not going to be a good number 2 in the NFL. Again, you look at his body; it doesn't look like someone that might be a number 2 in the NFL. But I've been wrong before about wide receiver body types. It's hard to judge on what that playing style is going to be and how they're going to utilize him going forward in Green Bay. I think Green Bay is a decent football team. 2 years ago, we were talking about how this was the youngest team to make the playoffs in the NFL and how much potential they had. I know there was a small drop-off this year. I have no idea how old Love is. I swear he's been in the league for 27 years, and he's like 22. So it just confuses me there.
Keon Sport draft show veteran.
Absolutely.
But again, I think Green Bay is a good football team. Hopefully, the first wide receiver they use a pick on isn't a bust. So. Well, I mean, only time can tell, but that's the hardest thing about just sitting here and judging these picks. We don't know. Neither do they. I mean, this guy could end up being a Hall of Famer in then 20 years. I'm going to text Vince when he's in the wheelchair in the old folks' home, and he's gonna be baffled on that this kid was a Hall of Famer.
I'm willing to let someone else make that mistake.
If I'm sitting in a nursing home at 63 years old in a wheelchair, we got a lot worse problems on our hands than who the Packers picked at receiver. Something went severely south in the next 20 years of my life.
After your daughters take over the company and fire all of us.
Son of a gun,
Not
man.
if we fire you first, right, Cole?
Don't wish that evil on me.
Don't worry, one of them will help you set up your webcam so you can still zoom into the draft show.
Okay, again, I don't want my daughters on any kind of webcam. So that's where we're going.
Minnesota Vikings.
Chatties tomorrow, 7 to 9, Bay Village.
Donovan Jackson, guard for Ohio State.
Well, Cole said we were going to see a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes. There's another one.
Yeah, the run's going to start to come here at the end of the first round and then going into the early part of the second round. So I have to say this, Donovan Jackson, unfortunately for him, he's going to a team that is going to go to the gutter of their division. But we got to trade. The New York Giants have moved up with the Houston Texans.
And there's
Shedeur
Mr. Sanders.
Yeah. That is probably
Winston.
the sign that Shedeur Sanders is going to be a New York Giant. They didn't need to get him at 3, but now they're coming up into the top 25. It's got to be Sanders here.
Yep.
That poor little baby. Aw. Yeah, no, I'd have to say that whatever, man. I mean, you pay Daniel Jones a lot of money. It doesn't work out. I have zero faith in their head coach. I think their head coach is just terrible in New York. Never been a fan of him. Going way back to the days of him being a offensive coordinator in Cleveland. So definitely not a Brian Daboll fan. But man, oh man. So you're gonna bring in Jameis Winston and you're gonna bring in Sanders.
And Russell Wilson.
That is going to be
What are you doing?
the best quarterback room in the NFL, and it has nothing to do with anyone's ability to play the position.
My God, I hope this is
It's
Jackson
because they
Dart.
have the most of them.
You're right. It's going to produce the best social media content of any quarterback room
Deion
in the
looks
NFL.
miserable. Does the guy next to him have a batting helmet on? I can't see.
That's a hat.
Yes.
Oh, and it's a woman. That's rough. But no, I mean, I'm just saying. Why would you do that? Go Jackson Dart if you're really that desperate for a quarterback there.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I'll be honest. New York is a hard place to play quarterback, and I think Sanders has major bust potential. I think there's a reason why he got here, but if anybody's going to be able to shine in the New York lights and at least deal with it, I think Sanders wants the lights more than Dart and some other quarterbacks do. So I think going into this draft, I was thinking the Giants for Sanders, that's probably about the most ideal fit of any team.
Yeah, I agree at this point in the draft. I would still love Shedeur Sanders for the Browns. I will die on that hill. That is totally fine. However, if you're the Giants and you're, again, Brian Daboll specifically, this is the best of both worlds. You brought in Russell Wilson to hopefully compete this year. You now have Shedeur Sanders behind him to develop and also give you an excuse to be kept on for an additional year. It's like, well, we got to see Shedeur pan out here. You've got the pull or like break glass in case of emergency quarterback now, where if things start going south with your two veterans that you brought in, now we can throw out Sanders and maybe save our jobs here.
But here's why I think you trade up for him right now too. If it's going to be your guy, or if Jackson Dart's going to be your guy, whoever this is, and you guys seem to believe it's Sanders. But when you look over here, as I look over to the old trusty helmets, the Rams were the next selection to pick a quarterback, right? As a possible backup for Stafford, something he could bring in. So this does make sense for them to make this trade right here. Because the Texans are next. Clearly, they're not even touching it with a 10-foot pole. This does make sense.
Again, I think we all thought if there was going to be a team that came up for Shedeur, it was either going to be the Giants first, and then the next would be the Browns. And really quick, the trade here, the Texans traded their 25th pick to the Giants. In return, they get the 34th, 99th, and then a 2026 third-round pick. So for moving back into the second round, they get a haul of 3 selections. 2 of them are this year.
But no first-round picks, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and I think that the Minnesota Vikings partially did the Giants a favor here by taking Donovan Jackson, because I think Donovan Jackson was going to be the pick to the Houston Texans.
Yep.
They need a left guard bad, and I think they were highly linked to Donovan Jackson. So as soon as he came off the board, that's an easy one for the Texans to say, yeah, we're good with trading out of this. And it panned out for the Giants to do what they want to do. Is it going to long-term pan out? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if it's Dart, it probably gives them a better chance for the future. I could maybe see him. Maybe his ceiling's not as high, but his floor's not as low, if that makes sense. But Sanders, you have that, really high highs, the potential low lows. So the likelihood of it being a quarterback here is highly likely. I'm hoping it's Sanders, because I definitely do not want the Browns to end up with him. As you had been showing Donovan Jackson highlights just a little bit ago, there's no quarterback that fits Cleveland better than Will Howard, especially with Joe Flacco being there and Kenny Pickett. So I'm hoping it's more of that in like the 3rd round, for example. So
No.
But needless to say,
I don't want that. I mean, Will Howard was a good, serviceable college quarterback. There's no way in the world I see this guy doing anything in the pros. Just my 2 cents.
I think that he improved over his time at Ohio State. I think his leadership ability, his winner mentality, and the way he helps and leads in a locker room, I think that he is potentially exactly what Cleveland needs coming off of the Deshaun Watson experiment, Will he be long term? I don't know. In a weak quarterback class, is he potentially the best fit for Cleveland? Probably.
Cole, I say this in all due respect. You're way better at now. You know, the analysis of these players. That's bull hockey. Anytime that you have to say leadership ability or knack for winning, it was the same stuff I was saying about Kenny Pickett a few years ago because he went to my favorite college. I get of having like wanting that guy to go to your hometown team and being successful, and he does have some redeeming qualities. He's gonna be a great backup in the league one day. But if he is drafted to be your number one guy, you made a waste of a pick. I truly
he
feel
would
that
be the
about
number
Howard.
one.
But if you,
I think that.
I don't know.
Oh,
yeah. Did you
pick
see
just came in, boys.
Coolio,
I
did
think
you
I'm
see
ahead
it?
of you.
My internet's
I
ahead
got a
too.
surprise.
Yeah, I'm gonna let them see it on the TV before I say it. All right, I saw
All
two.
right,
Yeah,
well,
please
well,
keep it a surprise to the guy that's updating the graphics. I appreciate that.
No problem, Brandon.
all right.
But you might want to put the Sanders clips away because it's Jackson Dart, quarterback. My internet's like 10 seconds ahead of the TV for whatever reason. Jackson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. I love it. I love it. I love it. I don't even care if the guy does anything. I'm just glad they didn't pick Sanders. Although, Cole, my God, this lines up perfectly for the Cleveland Browns to take them tomorrow night.
That
Or tonight.
sucks.
Or tonight.
Or the Rams. The Rams
Or
can still.
tonight.
The
That
Rams can still
sucks.
pluck them right now. But yeah. Wow.
I'm concerned. I'm hoping that.
Woo!
Oh nope. The Rams have traded the pick.
To the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, I swear to God, if the Browns traded away their a pick
To
for
the
this.
Atlanta Falcons.
No
the
way.
Atlanta Falcons. are
Shadur
now on the
Sanders,
clock.
let's go. Load up the quarterback
Okay,
room.
they've definitely traded it. Brian Dable, you're terrible.
Did they
Oh,
actually trade it to the
goodness.
Falcons? Again, we're behind here.
They
yes,
traded
they
it?
did.
You kill me.
Mike Green? Please? Please.
That would be wild considering they
Oh my
took Jalen
God.
Walker earlier.
They
Mike-
need it. They can use another edge. Again, the only person of note that could rush the passer was Matthew Judon, and they let him walk. They have nothing on that defensive line. I will gladly take it. The pick is in. Come on, guys. Don't let me down.
You have to wait about 47 minutes. They still got to fly Jackson Dart there
Poor
real quick.
Jackson Dart was the surprise of the draft.
Good
and
for him.
We're just skipping over it because of the Falcons.
Good little guy.
You guys go ahead. You guys go ahead. I got work to do.
Okay,
over
wait,
here.
let's
You're-
start
let's
over.
talk about
Wait,
that.
wait, wait.
Let's
talk about
Everybody
that.
take a breath. All right. Cole McDaniel, what can you tell us about Jackson Dart?
Jackson Dart is a good quarterback. Is he going to be a great quarterback? I don't know. I thought he was probably going to be the best fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I felt like that was a place where he could go and be successful. Would he be much more successful than Kenny Pickett was there? I don't know. Maybe slightly. His problem is he does not get out of bounds. He tries to do a little too much, and when he could easily step out, he just runs right into contact, and he's going to get himself hurt if he doesn't start playing smarter. He is a good player. I see potential for him. He was my 48th overall prospect in this class. He was my number 5 quarterback, and like I said, my comparisons for him, I saw some Bo Nix, right? Potentially in the right system, right scheme, he could potentially have a year that was impressive and maybe even better than people expected initially. Then I also see Desmond Ridder in there, where I like some of that ability. I think he has the running ability. I think he's got a decent arm, is pretty accurate, but I could see, like Desmond Ridder, if he's not in the right scheme, he could maybe struggle a little bit. And Desmond Ridder got the short end of the stick. I was high on him in a weak class a couple of years ago, Kenny Pickett's class to be exact. So again, average to below average starter, maybe good backup in the league. We'll see what happens. I don't love the fit in New York, but I think Sanders is probably a better fit in New York. And just because I don't care for the Giants all that much, I would have been happy to see him in New York. So now Sanders is still out there, and here's Dart going to New York in that weird quarterback room.
Really quick, trade details here for the Falcons. They have acquired a 2025 first and a 2025 third round pick, which is 101, and they send the Rams their 2025 second-round pick at 46, a seventh-round pick this year, and a 2026 first-round pick.
Woo.
So whoever
Next
the
year's
Falcons are
first-round pick.
targeting here,
Wow.
they are very, very high on.
That is something. And here's the thing, too. The Giants tomorrow on the national media, again, because it's in New York, they're going to get A's. People are going to be like, that's great, the first round of the draft. Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, they made a splash. They made the New York splash hit again. There's no denying that.
Hilarious.
I don't like that
this
you're
is-
ahead.
Yeah, this is not ideal.
Brandon, who did you not want earlier?
You've got to be kidding me.
Is it Pierce?
You've
Sure.
got to be kidding
It
me.
is. So James Pierce Jr., edge rusher, Tennessee. What will he bring to the Falcons, Cole? Wow.
He is a true 3-4 outside linebacker. He's long, he's skinny, he's fast. And because he's fast,
Pretty
people
dressed.
are enamored with him. He was my 56th overall prospect. I had him one spot above Mikael Williams. Jalen Walker was a much better pick in the first round, but here they come trading up to get him. So 2 first-rounders on edge rushers, and I don't think either of them are game changers, if that makes sense. So the Falcons, they addressed a need,
Shoo.
but again, Mike Green was better than both edge rushers that they took. I'm a little disappointed in what the Falcons have done.
Man, and the Falcons gave away that first round pick next year for this. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one thing I want to talk about real quick, Cole, you said a lot of people love his speed. You know what a good offensive tackle does with a guy with a lot of speed that likes rushing the outside, doesn't like that
They put him on the
contact
ground.
initially? That too, but you know what you're taught to do? Because he's going to want to bend the horn. He's going to want to get the outside. He's going to dip and rep. You know what you do? You get that big tackle hand right on his hip and throw him past the quarterback. Quarterback steps up, makes a beautiful throw. When there's a guy that wants to go around the edge, you'll take him around the edge, but you take him about 10 yards further back than he wants to go. You can lead him back there. There's nothing there for him because that quarterback's going to step up and make a throw. This could be a problem with Atlanta when you have a pass rusher that doesn't make contact right away. He likes dancing on the line of scrimmage. Again, doesn't have a real good push-pull rip, which is a basic move to have as a pass rusher. Again, his speed, something to be excited for, but that's pretty much it. It's like an Abdul Carter that doesn't have a pass rush move that he can consistently do that will get him winning. It's more of the play breaks and he's sprinting after it. Not a fan of this, guys. Not a fan.
Ravens on the clock. Any final thoughts, Brandon, before we move on?
Oh, yeah, plenty, actually. So the Falcons have now reached on a defensive end prospect early and then got a situational pass rusher who has been dubbed the least coachable player in this draft.
Jesus.
And to do that, they've given up a first-round pick next year. I defended this franchise vehemently last year when they took Michael Penix where they did when everyone else was kind of ragging on him, and that ended up being a good pick.
Yeah.
So maybe Terry Fontenot knows something that I don't. But holy crap, there's too much talent left on this board to take Pierce. And I get it. He was one of the top-ranked guys coming into this year, right? He was projected to be the number 1 overall pick in some instances. There's a reason he's not now. And it's what he has shown to those that have interviewed with him and coached him. And it was also how he was used this year, where, again, he generates speed to power relatively well. I don't necessarily see that translating to the NFL. And he played, 33% of his snaps on defense this year? So
Yeah.
he's got a lot of developing to do for a team that needs immediate starters at edge. And we mortgage some of the future to do that. I don't get it
It is something.
at all.
At
all.
It's a reach.
And now the Ravens coming up here are going to be able to do the Ravens thing that they
Yep,
do.
just like the Steelers every
And
year.
they're going to take Mike Green, Will Johnson, or Malachi Starks. They're
Whoa.
going to get some crazy defensive talent that everyone else overthought and didn't pick here. And we're just back in the same boat we always were. The Falcons literally jumped ahead of them to hopefully be able to do the same thing, and they completely whiffed.
No, I agree completely. And again, we talk about Pittsburgh. No matter where they pick, they get a stud almost always. Ravens,
my
same
screen,
deal.
Meta.
I mean, the Ravens, same deal, no matter what. Always seems to be the case. It's funny, voted the least coachable player. You know, I think about my little kids going to school and, you know, we want to bring home the awards and put them on the fridge. I can't imagine that guy's mom, you know, takes that press clipping of least coachable player and slaps on the whole
She
fridge.
made it a bumper sticker, actually. They're very proud of it.
Just amazing. So, guys, the pick is in, but you know, kind of combining a lot of night 2 into night 1 tonight as night 2, you know, 2 hours, a little bit more condensed. So I'm going to throw this out there as we are here with the Ravens. No matter who they pick, okay, I don't care who they pick here. I'm throwing this out there regardless, right? Currently constructed, can they beat the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship and go to the doggone Super Bowl already?
Who do you want to start us off?
Anybody.
Cole, go ahead.
They're close. Yeah, they're close. I mean, they're really not that far away. I mean, the Chiefs have gotten so much help from officials, right? Kelsey's taken some steps back. I think offensive line wise, they weren't as strong last year. I mean, the Eagles proved that Chiefs team, you know, in that Super Bowl that they weren't as good as what. Yeah, I mean they were in the playoffs to be able to get to the Super Bowl. There were a lot of close games that the Chiefs snuck by in the regular season, so it's hard to go against them because they just continue to win, and the NFL seems to love them. But yes, I mean that's still a beatable team. The Bills, they're still beatable. They're very good, but they haven't quite found how to be the perennial power getting there. So the Ravens, they're right in the mix, and I think that they're probably going to hit on this pick. And my gut feeling is this is going to be an Ohio State guy who came from a championship team, right? Whether this is Josh Simmons at tackle, or I could see them taking Travion Henderson at running back just to have a speedy running back to partner with Derrick Henry. Something nasty is probably going to happen for the Baltimore Ravens that's just fallen into their laps at the end of the first round.
Brandon, will the Baltimore Ravens win a Super Bowl in the Lamar Jackson era? What is it going to take?
I can't say never, but they really do feel like a team that regardless of what they put around them, they're going to luck into not luck in. They're going to have a year where they're good enough to get into the Super Bowl, but Lamar Jackson has yet to prove he can consistently perform in the playoffs regardless of what is around him. So until we see that change, until we see him take that next step, no, I don't think they're going to. Personally, I mean, he's got all the talent in the world to do it, but there's just something there that is not quite clicking once we get into that late season push that it's not there. I can't pick the Ravens to win a Super Bowl until I see Lamar actually go have some playoff success. And oh, look,
Dom Cleary,
just like I said.
If Jesse the Body Ventura was going to announce his pick, how would it sound?
Do you actually want me to sit?
Yes.
No, we don't. But I guess
So-
Vince does, so yes, go for it.
Go right ahead.
Actually,
Hurry up.
I really like this pick in Malachi Starks. When I was the mayor of Minnesota, I really liked this kid. It reminds me of my time at Vietnam.
With Agent Orange.
I remember when I landed in the... I remember when I landed because I was a Navy SEAL. Did you know that?
You just didn't play one on TV. Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia, yet another SEC player off the board. The best suit of the night, too. Very stylish. I'm being honest with that. Love that suit. But Malachi Starks, this is huge. I mean, god darn. We just said how no matter what, the Ravens are going to get a stud. There it is. Safety, where was he in your class there, Cole?
Yeah, and they hit on this. I mean, I felt like there's multiple ways that they could go, but I mean, it's a really nice pick after what the Falcons had done. And he was my 34th overall prospect. He was my third safety. Overall, typically the consensus number one safety for most people. He was the best coverage safety of the top three for that I had, but I think that's going to help them out that they got a good coverage safety. So regardless, he's going to make an impact for the Baltimore Ravens, and their defense just got a little bit better.
So I'm going to say this, the Lions. Now, I just said about, hey, guys, what do you think? Can the Ravens ever win a Super Bowl and how they're constructed? Here we are with the Lions. Jared Goff, remembered his name was Jared Goff last year in the playoffs. Interceptions galore, stunned by the Commanders. Dom, we'll start with you, bud.
What, if they can win a Super Bowl?
Lions, you would think it's a sure thing.
So I want to be like, because remember a few years ago I called them the lovable
Yeah,
losers and how much I love that team.
Yeah.
So I want to sit here and tell you, oh, this roster can win a Super Bowl. Which, if you remove the logo and the city they play in, yes, it can. But you're talking to a guy that believes in curses in sports.
Me too.
And I don't think they can win a Super Bowl. I don't think it has anything to do with what's on the field. And Cole's probably thinking I'm crazy right now because you're like, you look at the players and the analysis and the numbers, and I look at I'm a Red Sox fan.
Overall
I believe
culture.
in curses.
Yeah.
It's not even a culture. You can have the best culture in the world, but there's something that's not letting them win. And I can't tell you what. I played football at Baldwin Wallace.
I agree.
We should have went to the playoffs 3 times. We went zilch, none, because there's a curse. I believe in curses in sports, and you guys are Browns fans. You guys should know curses more than anyone else. They're out there, they're alive, and they haunt these teams forever. It's the reason why there's certain teams that can just never get over the hump, and I don't think the Lions will ever win a Super Bowl because there is some deity out there, some god that just doesn't like the Lions.
I think the Browns should have changed everything. I'm dead serious. I don't think when they came back to the NFL, they shouldn't have been the Cleveland Browns. Just restart. Because, as you said, certain things are just jinxed. You can't sit here and tell me
The Cleveland
that
Ponies.
the Cleveland Browns franchise isn't the most jinxed, snake-bit, cursed franchise in the history of sports since they've returned. Why not change it up at this point? Who cares? All you're doing is demolishing a legacy that was once incredible. But again, the Lions, guys, before we get too carried away with this was a team that a lot of us saw going to the Super Bowl last year. But Jared Goff, I just don't know if he's the answer. They're not going to pick a quarterback here, and that's not where I'm going with this. But overall, can the Lions win as currently constructed?
As currently, go ahead, Cole. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say this, that I'm actually on the same page, not necessarily as much on the curse side of things, but I don't think with the current roster, no. Because last year was the year.
Yes.
Last year, they were the best team in the NFC. And because of the year that they had, most of their coaching staff is gone because they got poached by the rest of the NFL. So without Ben Johnson's offense and the way that operated, are they going to be as successful offensively? I don't think they're going to be quite the team offensively that they were. I mean, they just had a knack for running the football and pulling a rabbit out of the hat. And Amon-Ra was fantastic. I expect him to continue to be good again, and the running backs are still going to be good. But Jared Goff, and I don't know, with a dumbed down offensive scheme, maybe if they can quite have the same type of success. So last year was the year, and they missed. And that could set them back another 20, 30, 40 years before they win a Super Bowl. They probably will at some point in the future. I think every franchise will at some point, but is it anytime soon? I don't think so. But credit to the Lions. I will give them the credit. They've hit on most of their draft picks in recent years. They'll probably do it again by taking like Jihad Campbell or somebody like that who's high up on the board right now.
Say Jihad Campbell, they really need edge depth, as we saw when Aiden Hutchinson went down. They really struggled in that department. I'll keep saying Mike Green. I think we're seeing him in round 2 at this point. I like Nick Scorton from Texas A&M here a lot as well. A guy whose production dropped off when he went from Purdue to Texas A&M, which is kind of inexplicable. Shamar Turner also seemed to struggle to produce actual numbers in that defense. So who knows? Was dominant at Purdue. I think he'd be a really good fit in Detroit.
It's another Buckeye off the board. They do go with Williams, the defensive tackle, again, out of Ohio State, a guy that Cole McDaniel knows very well.
Yeah, big defensive tackle. And for being like 330 pounds typically, Tyleik Williams doesn't move like he's a 330-pounder. I mean, he gets in the backfield really quickly. He has some pass rush ability, and he is a guy that I think is undervalued by many in this class. I mean, he was pretty high up the board for most people, but I looked at him as just outside my top 3. He was my number 4 defensive tackle. I think he can really fit in multiple different types of schemes. He's kind of a mix of, he's got that Larry Ogunjobi, aspect to him, I think, with the mobility. But then Devon Hamilton, who's been long time with the Jaguars, former Ohio State guy, big, physical in the middle. So I think the big thing for him is going to be his conditioning, right? Can he keep his playing weight in a good place where he's still explosive? But I see the potential of him being very strong for the Lions for many years to come. Their defensive line just got better because I believe still have Aleem McNeil and you have DJ Reader, who are both good guys against the run. But then I think that you got another big guy who gives you three in the rotation that you can continually rotate, and I think that's really going to strengthen that interior. And the Lions, they really should still be that number one team in their division, even though the Packers, I would say, probably the closest.
So the surprise team last year, we've already talked about, and Brandon made a hell of a point about how Washington changed the culture, new coach, new owner, new everything pretty much, and it worked for him. So, Brandon, I'll start with you on this one as the Commanders get ready to make their pick tonight. Only 4 picks left in this round. Is this something that's long-term sustainable? Because I kind of feel that it is.
Yeah, it's absolutely sustainable because, again, it wasn't just just sticking with the same franchise. Robert Griffin III comes in, and you got a flash in the pan, right? Where, all of a sudden our offense looks great. This guy, he gets hurt at the end of the year, but everything's trending in the right direction. But you were kind of slapping lipstick on a pig, and the league was able to figure out Robert Griffin III that he couldn't read a defense to save his life, and then, of course, his injuries derailed him on top of that. You did not just bring in Jaden Daniels, who is a much better player than Robert Griffin was. He's better at being able to read defenses. He immediately figured out how to stay healthy in the NFL, which a lot of people, including myself, are worried about because he played very reckless in college with his body. You had 1 or 2 hits a game where you were like holding your breath, hoping that he was going to come back out onto the field. He corrected that. And the biggest thing when it comes to Washington was the ownership change. Bringing in a brand new philosophy, a brand new, kind of hope to everything. And to Dom's point, I don't necessarily believe in curses, but I do believe in culture. And the Browns, with the Haslams and with their long line of owners, have just never really had a good culture around that team that it was going to facilitate winning, and they still don't. I feel like something was sparked with that entire franchise when things finally flipped over. It felt hopeless with Dan Snyder. He was always in the news. There was always something going on with him. He was a complete loose cannon. He gets out of the building. We get new life. We get Jaden Daniels in here. And all of a sudden, he's elevating everybody around him. They've made some trades to improve that offensive line, to go get Deebo Samuel as well, improve on the offensive side. Now, all of a sudden, they're sitting here at, pick 29. And it's almost a luxury pick where they can take something like a running back here if they really want to. They need edge rushers still, which there are still a few really good ones, I think, left on the board that they could snag if they wanted to go that route. But whatever they pick here, it's not going to be crucial to the franchise. And they've made some really bad first-round picks in recent memory, honestly, going back to Emmanuel Forbes a few years ago, where it felt like, same shit, different day kind of a deal. But it feels like Jaden and the ownership change has completely revitalized the franchise. So all that to say, yes, I think it's sustainable. I don't necessarily think they're going to be in the Super Bowl this year, but Washington's going to be around for a long time.
I would agree. No, Dom, Washington clearly made the pick last year, got it correct with Jaden Daniels. As we sit here with 4 picks left in the first round, let me ask you this one, Dahmer. Would you say, obviously, Geno Smith with the Raiders, Darnold to the Seahawks, those might feel like little bits of a stretch in free agency this year. But overall, every single team in the NFL right now pretty much has a pretty good idea of who their starting quarterback is going to be week 1, with the exception of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's the reality right now.
As I look over at the helmets, yeah.
Yeah, that's the reality that we live in. I don't think they view Mason Rudolph as their number one. I think that there's an expectation in that front office that week 1 starter is either going to be Kirko Chains and Kirk Cousins, or it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, and I think they want it to be Rodgers. Again, you look at Pittsburgh radio people, and they're always, he's looking at country clubs. I heard he's looking at places to golf. I heard Aaron Rodgers is in town. And so I don't know. I honestly think he might retire at this point. What are we waiting for, as my father would say?
I do think he was waiting for the draft. I don't think he wanted the same thing to happen to Kirk happen to him, which is unrealistic.
He's 49 years old.
I agree.
To sign the
So-
contract.
But
and
it's Aaron Rodgers.
yeah.
And I don't think he's going to get the contract that he wants.
I
as
think
well.
Debo Samuel is going to be a huge help for these Commanders next year as well. I do. So
I do think he's getting slept on a little bit.
yeah. So Josh Connolly Jr., the official pick, tackle out of Oregon. What does Connolly Jr. bring to the Commanders, Cole?
Connerly played left tackle for Oregon, and I think now that Laramie Tunsil was signed to be the left tackle for the Commanders, they're just making sure that they protect their young quarterback, Jaden Daniels, who had a great season last year. Not a whole lot more that they really need on offense, but I don't think Sam Cosme's necessarily the guy at right tackle. So you put Connerly out on the right side. I think that's going to be beneficial for them to make sure that that Daniels is protected. And now you can really probably start to focus more on the defensive side because edge rushers, their weakest spot. I mean, they got stronger on the interior of the defensive line. Their defense, they could use another cornerback and maybe some secondary help. But their defense was okay last year. It was good enough. But I think after this pick, they can really hone in on defense with the few other picks. They don't have a ton of picks in this draft, but especially in day 1, day 2, and beginning of day 3, start focusing on the defense. But I like this. I think this is smart for next year, the year after, and probably the next 5 to 10 years.
So Dom, I just looked over it. I'm gonna redo my math here in a second, but I got 5 or 6, I think 6 total offensive linemen selected so far in the first round tonight between tackles and guards. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great actually. Love seeing offensive linemen go in the first round. I don't know if he's a day 2 or day 3 pick or not, but a kid I actually went against in high school is actually in the draft. I mean, I don't know if he will even get drafted. I don't know his stock. That's not me dissing him.
Sure.
I generally don't know his stock, but Jaquay Hubbard out of West Virginia. He was kind of a utility guy for a few years. Didn't play at his first school at Virginia, but it's like it's cool to see guys like that I even played against. I mean, he was only a year younger than me, but it's cool to see a lot of these linemen in the draft getting picked in the first round. I know there's a few people that we considered reaches, but anytime that you see a first round full of offensive linemen, everyone gets a little bit bored, but I get excited for those picks.
No, not at all. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And, you know, Brandon, we touched on a lot about Jaden Daniels and how good he was as a rookie, how much potential he has for long-term sustainability. This is a great pick in my book, an offensive tackle.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about protecting a young asset like Jaden Daniels, it does make sense. It wasn't the biggest need, but still a need somewhere that you can, again, shore up a little bit. And like I said with Washington, after watching them last year, you kind of realize that, hey, we're not as buried as we thought we were. Like, we're not completely having to build this thing from the ground up. They really jump-started a rebuild is what they did by bringing Jaden in there. So, again, good pick. I cannot fault them at all for taking offensive line. I would love to see them take an edge. Again, Mike Green continues to fall for whatever reason. We'll see where that slide eventually stops. And then another player that still on the board that has to be the Medicals, Will Johnson, quarterback out of Ohio State. Interested to see if the Bills pick him up here because Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, the cornerback, has been linked to them quite a bit. But in pretty much every one of those mock drafts, Johnson was off the board about 10 picks earlier.
Well, guys, as we wind it down tonight, 3 picks to go. We are almost out of time on air here. It looks like we're going to actually make it past midnight tonight, so one of the longer first rounds we've had in a little while. But wanted to take this time to remind everybody tomorrow night, stop on out to Chatty's Pizzeria in Bay Village. It is a phenomenal restaurant, way more than just pizza, a full menu of Italian goodies, a lot of room to come in, have yourself a good time, check out the show live and listen to us. Submit your questions too. Hit me up at vince.mckee@keonsports.com, and we will be happy to read your questions on air if appropriate. Now, that being said, guys, as we look 3 more picks here tonight, local sports talk radio, I don't really listen to it anymore, no offense, Dom, but you know, the few times it accidentally slipped on my radio over the last few months, it really seemed like the only thing they wanted to talk about was Sanders. Sanders, Sanders, Sanders. And I thought in the back of my mind, man, at least by the end of the first night of the draft, all that talk is done. I don't think he's coming to Cleveland. It's over with. It's done. But here we are, 3 picks to go. It's not done, man.
No, I don't think it's done at all. Especially
and now the Browns picking second in the second round. Holy
especially
smokes.
with the Eagles, though, with that last pick.
That's right.
Howie Roseman loves to wheel and deal. If don't be surprised if the Browns or someone else pop up to 32, and then Roseman can sit there and take calls all night for that top of the second round pick. I don't think we're necessarily done.
Why would they do that though when they're picking first in the second round?
5th-year option. You wouldn't have to do much to trade up to that. It would not be a huge, haul that you'd have to give up to swap one spot. But if you do find your quarterback in the future, that's an extra year where you have control over a quarterback without breaking the bank and giving him a new contract.
And those are the minor details people overlooked that you just pointed out to me. Yeah, and that's something
What did Sanders do to fall this far? I was just thinking
he's
about
not good. He wasn't a good quarterback.
Hold on. Because that's
simple as that.
That's not true.
He's not.
That's not true.
Okay.
He did something. Again, I didn't think he was going to be great, like the overwhelming prospect. But first round, second round, I thought we'd see him. I was pretty confident that he would go before Dart.
He probably didn't do anything.
I didn't think Dart was a first-round pick.
He, not so much him. I don't care how good Maggie, my daughter, is at basketball. I am sitting the furthest away from the coach, up top, way up, final row of the gymnasium. I don't care how good she is, right? Deion Sanders never shut up. Makes himself the head coach of Colorado, gets the job, brings the kid in, bumps out the kid who was playing quarterback there. Right there, you're putting a target on his back. By the way, Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky, going to the Bills. So we talked about a cornerback going to the Bills. You thought it would be an Ohio State guy. It is not. It is Maxwell Hairston. We'll get back to the Sanders debate in a little bit, but I'm just saying, as a parent of an athlete, sit down, shut up, watch the game. When you promote your kid like he's the second coming, you're instantly going to have a target on him. Cole McDaniel, Maxwell Hairston, what does he bring to the Bills, and is he the missing link?
Well, Will Johnson in Michigan continues to still sit out there. Maxwell Harrison, he was my 9th-ranked cornerback, my 90th overall prospect. He's to me a true nickel.
Got to trade, guys.
Him in the NFL, and we have a trade. The Kansas City Chiefs have traded to the Philadelphia Eagles.
So they swap with the Harrison breakdown.
So not much more to say there. I was actually hoping that the Bills would maybe go safety. I'm going to sound like the worst human being on the face of the earth, but I don't think Damar Hamlin is the answer.
How dare you?
So sorry that I'm targeting Damar Hamlin, but he's not a starter in the NFL, and he really shouldn't be.
How dare you?
He's a fine backup, but I think they should have probably gone safety. Harrison should be okay. I don't think it necessarily hurts them or helps them too much. I mean, the Bills are still head and shoulders above the rest of their division.
I remember being a little kid and thinking, I was a little kid, I was naive, and thinking that the two teams who played in the Super Bowl didn't get along. Like, they just hated each other, because you grow up as a little boy and that's what you think. It just cracks me up that the two teams that, Philadelphia just beat the brakes off of Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and here they are making a trade with each other. Little 8-year-old Vince McKee would be stunned right now.
So funny enough, Vince, I thought the same thing, but I also thought that some teams were friends. I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts were best friends. Don't know why. I don't know. Well, I think it's because
of Peyton and Big Ben?
Oh, yeah, because they were my two favorite players.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so I think there was and also like Heath Miller and who's the tight end I'm thinking of for the Colts?
Dallas
Clark.
Yeah, I thought those two. I thought they were friends. I don't know why. I have no evidence of anything.
I'll give you one better than that, and this is going to really show my my naivety as a kid. I thought Big Time Wrestling, even though I knew it was scripted, but at the same time, I'm like,
it's scripted.
The bad guys and the good guys, like the bad guys and the good guys really don't like each other, right? So I was thinking, like, how could they get along if they see each other on the road or in the hotel? Like, they must just fight all the time. Like, if Jake the Snake He's Hulk Hogan. He's going to try to attack him with a stick.
I like to actually, like, I do believe that the Iron Sheik, like, would try to fight Hulk Hogan, like, backstage.
I don't know. I believe that.
Not to derail too much.
Just to the body Ventura inhaled too much Agent Orange. But go ahead.
Trade details, not much to talk about. Eagles traded number 32 and number 164 to move up one spot. What's interesting is
That's bizarre.
Why are you moving up one spot here, unless you're afraid of a team jumping for one specific guy? Obviously, they're taking Shedeur, taking a quarterback early, like they did before when they drafted Jalen Hurts, and they still had Carson Wentz on the roster. So better to be a year too early than too late, maybe. But
was that the smart move?
It is interesting. So it's got to be one of those big names I think we keep talking about. Neither Will Johnson, Mike Green, one of those guys that continues to slip that they're afraid a team was going to jump up for. Otherwise, I don't really understand the move from Philadelphia.
I've made 2 mistakes. I mean, I make a ton of mistakes, but I've been way wrong on 2 quarterbacks over the years since we started doing this show. And I can admit it. I'll admit it. One was Jalen Hurts. The other was last year with Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden Daniels still has a long way to go, but I think that dude's going to be a player in this league for years, right? But I remember Jalen Hurts thinking to myself, like him and Tua both times I'm like, system guys out of Alabama. And I got to say, they've both played very well. If Tua could stay healthy, he'd be really, really good.
Like, as a guy who's never gotten a pick wrong in his entire life, I can't necessarily relate. Josh Rosen was definitely not my quarterback the year that
I remember that.
Baker and Lamar went.
That's before I met you.
I'm gonna interrupt real quick. Cole, you can't see this, but or actually, you might be able to. Do you still see highlights playing for you?
I do.
Here, we'll let everybody know.
Okay. So these are against Vanderbilt, and they showed a tight clip, so it's like behind the quarterback, and all you saw was the active construction zone. That's Vanderbilt sense. Now, Vince, I don't know how much Vanderbilt football you watch. I watch every game.
Little to none.
So the end zone, they tore the scoreboard down and completely redid it. It's just a pile of dirt. And during games, it'd be live construction.
Tremendous.
And the scoreboard is hanging on by 2. They beat Alabama in the construction zone.
I only got one thing to say about that.
Cool. I don't know how much Vanderbilt football you watch, but as someone that considers themselves a Vanderbilt connoisseur,
Alabama lost to that. That's amazing.
Construction zone.
But no, they should have been in the CFP, guys. Trust me.
It's so funny.
So first of all, when you said big time wrestling, I thought you said Big Ten wrestling was scripted, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Penn State and Iowa, that's all scripted. But no, I actually think Eagles here. By the way, I really like the thought of Luther Burden III going to the Philadelphia Eagles. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith on the outside. Luther Burden is going to be best in the slot. He's 5'11". I'm sure he's got a decent frame, but he's still a shorter wide receiver. Jahan Dotson, as much as I liked him coming out, I mean, Dotson he kind of fell apart with the Commanders. He wasn't really utilized as he needed to be utilized, and I think he kind of lost confidence, and he has not panned out. So could he be a good 4th receiver? Yeah, but the Eagles, they don't have a lot of receivers behind their top 2 guys. So I think you take a Luther Burden here, give Jalen Hurts another weapon, and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Luther Burden, and then Jahan Dotson's your 4th. I think that really helps a talented roster that has a good chance of making another run at a Super Bowl again.
Well, not to mention, and again, who knows? It's Philadelphia media, so it's always a little bit hard to read. It does feel like A.J. Brown continues to get floated out there in, team drama or just not off the field stuff, but things aren't always necessarily jiving there with him. And again, we've never actually seen that on the field. I don't think we've ever seen it affect his production or anything, but again, bringing in somebody like Luther Burden gives you additional insurance, and it's not like you can't play him if you still have A.J. Brown. Like, he's a much more natural. I get that you say he's in the slot. He's a much stronger receiver than that 5'11" height's going to kind of tell you. I still think you can get away with putting Devontae in the slot, having him on the outside. Point being, it gives you plenty of options where you're going to be able to get all of those weapons out there on the field at the same time. Oh, and by the way, you still have Saquon Barkley. I don't hate it, and I don't know if it was still necessary to swap up to go and grab Burden. Again, you're giving up a 5th round pick, So if that's the insurance you need to go and get a guy that you're that high on, I guess go for it. But I do feel like most teams that would be looking to trade up into this round at this point would be looking at a Shedeur Sanders, a Jalen Milroe, a quarterback of some kind, and not necessarily Burden. Or they can just continue making a strength to strength and get like Mike Green here.
Here goes Shedeur.
Well, linebacker.
Or get the best linebacker in the draft.
Yep.
Which they just did with Jahad Campbell,
Sure.
linebacker out of Alabama. The rich getting richer.
He shouldn't still be on the board.
Unbelievable. The Super Bowl champions get one of the top prospects out there. Cole McDaniel for the 31st time tonight. What are the Eagles getting with Campbell?
Incredible value. He is my 11th overall prospect in this class, and you're getting him at pick 31. I thought there was a good chance that he might make it to the end of the first round, but I thought he was already going to be off the board by probably like pick 28 or so. So we're a couple picks beyond that at this point. Still maybe even raw at the position, really developing, but he's long, can get sideline to sideline, a lot of explosiveness as a blitzer. I mean, you could even line him up at times off of the edge. He's going to make an impact, but I really like what I've seen from Campbell, and I think he's going to be a difference maker and just a playmaker for the Eagles. I just think that, like you said, the rich get richer, and some of these teams, they just continue to fall into good picks. And like Kenyon Mitchell last year for the Eagles, and Cooper DeJean played well for them. And it felt like the draft really went the Eagles' way last year, and perhaps it's going to go that way 2 years in a row.
Yeah, Cole, they really parlayed a good draft last year into a Super Bowl. I mean, Mitchell was phenomenal. DeJean made a play in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't say it was the reason why they won the Super Bowl, but, you know, again, it was one of many reasons why they were so dominant in that game. I mean, it's been pick after pick with the Eagles, and it's not even that they're doing anything crazy. It's just the guys that fit that team, that fit their needs, fall to where they are. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, when they got Carter, they did nothing but sit and wait because a kid had a major mistake while he was in college. No one wanted to pick him, and they thought there were huge character issues. Boom. They get their defensive tackle, who's now one of the best defensive tackles in the league. They end up sitting and waiting, and they get two cornerbacks that, I mean, we all knew were going to be good. No one picked them but the Eagles. Eagles get two franchise pieces at their cornerback slots, and now they have a linebacker that can just be another guy on a long list of just phenomenal draft picks by this front office for the Eagles. That really should be considered one of the best front offices in the league on how they built this team from that first championship in, what was it, 17 to what they've done last year and this year.
Yeah, again, when you're the Eagles, you get the luxury of taking best player available. And this, I still don't know if you needed to trade up to do it. Whatever, neither here nor there. You got one of the top players in the draft all the way back at pick 31 to add to your already stacked defense and another defensive SEC defensive player back there to continue shoring things up. I mean, again, with the talent left on the board, which there's always guys that slipped around too that we think should have been first-round picks. There's only 32 of them. Seems like there's always 40 to 45 guys that we think deserve to be taken. But Jahad should have been off the board a long time ago, so credit for the Eagles being patient, making the move where they had to make it, bring in Jahad, and now, again, one more pick to go, Kansas City Chiefs.
Brandon, there's been 4 edge rushers selected tonight, 2 by the Atlanta Falcons. How do you feel about that?
About the Falcons or about the fact that 4 edge rushers went? Because I can talk about the Falcons all night if we really want to do that.
No, I mean, you know, it's funny because, as we always say, the rich get richer, and here we are with Kansas City. So we're going to play the old game. Who is the best remaining player on your big board? We're going to go around the table. Obviously, the Chiefs are in a position where they could pick for a need. They're so stacked in so many areas.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
We'll get there.
No, that's good. Good.
We'll get there.
Okay, Brandon, we can start with you. So, you know, the Chiefs, where are they going to go with this? They could go in a million different places.
So the Chiefs, unfortunately, I don't think this board fell the way that they wanted to. They need to address that offensive line. This is the second Super Bowl they have lost
Because
they can't. Yeah, and again, to be fair, they've gone up against 2 incredible fronts in Tampa Bay and Philadelphia in those Super Bowls. but offensive line was an issue all year. It's the reason that we were pegging them as the worst 15-16 win team that we've ever seen, because that offense never got going because Mahomes just couldn't get in rhythm. And a lot of the big guys have already gone here, so it's tough. Like, I like Ariante Ursary out of Boston College, I believe. It's blanking me right now.
Minnesota.
Minnesota, thank you. But he's a guy where he's got the size. He's
It
a
was the
hulking
mayor of
individual.
Minnesota.
Hulking human being, but it felt like he didn't take that step forward this year. He's kind of hit his wall. So if you're taking best player available, they do need quarterback. They do need cornerback still. Will Johnson, I think, would fit well here, but their biggest need is really thinned out quickly.
My top 3 still available right now. My number 8, Will Johnson. Number 13, Luther Burden III, and number 19, Josh Simmons, Ohio State. And who cares about the knee injury? Should be Josh Simmons, in my opinion, at left tackle.
Let's see. I'm looking
Was it
at
Xavier Worthy who got hurt last year on the Mahomes attempted tackle that led to mayhem?
It was Rice.
No,
Rice.
Rice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, Will Johnson's my top player available still. He's my 9th overall prospect. Mike Green, 13.
Ohio State Buckeyes get the final pick. Josh Simmons, tackle there, as we said, out of Ohio State. So how about that? Cole said there'd be a run on Buckeyes, and there was a bit of a mini run there. That concludes the first round of the draft. Cole, walk us through it.
Yeah, there's going to be a solid run between the end of the first round and even the third and fourth round. You're going to see double-digit Buckeyes go, probably in the first 4 rounds, which is unbelievable. But Josh Simmons, I think he's the most talented tackle of this class, not just because he's an Ohio State guy, but I saw a lot of ability from him where he started at San Diego State at right tackle for a few years. Then he came to Ohio State, started at left tackle, had a good year his first year, but some penalty issues, false start penalties, and was still settling in. He was dominant until the knee injury against Oregon, and then missed really half the season, which is unfortunate, but I think he's going to bounce back just fine with the Kansas City Chiefs. They really need to make sure that they were protecting Patrick Mahomes on the blind side, and their offensive line was actually pretty weak this past year. So Josh Simmons really helps them out. I think he's going to bounce back, and I think there's a good chance he is the best of all the tackles in the NFL career-wise of the guys picked in the first round tonight. And Kansas City is probably going to have him as a guy out there on that left side for the next decade.
They needed to beef up that line, and there you go. Smart pick. Dom, what can you talk to us about a little bit here with Josh Simmons, and what is he going to do for the Chiefs?
Yeah, Cole, there's a reason why Cole likes him so much. Good offensive tackle option. I mean, one of many. You kind of thought he would go a little earlier, but that's not here or there. Good option. They needed a tackle. His body more looks like a right tackle, just very stocky. Usually left tackles look a little bit thinner in the gut, a little bit wider in the rear with not very, the legs aren't as wide. So he looks more of a right tackle to me, but if he can kick slide well, he can kick slide well. There's nothing wrong with that. So I don't know. It's a good pick. It's what they needed. Hopefully that he can stick at that left tackle spot. If not, I think he can bounce over to right tackle as well, just due to his body type and kind of how he moves.
Brandon.
Again, it was a necessity pick here for Kansas City. I wasn't quite as high on Josh Simmons because of that knee injury, but again, that's a swing that you're willing and able to take as Kansas City. I mean, as bad as the offensive line was, you still got to the Super Bowl. So if Simmons pans out to be anything like we think he could, in comparison to how he played when he was at Ohio State, again, great job for them. When you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you can afford to take a little bit of a risk like that. And depending on who you talk to, it's really not even one.
Cool. What knee was it that he hurt? I don't remember which knee it was.
I don't remember at this point either.
His knee injury, depending what knee it is crucial to what side he will play. If it is it's his left knee, he's not going to be playing left tackle. Because as soon as that he makes contact on his left side, he's going to be a swinging gate. If it's his right knee, he's not going to be on the right side. Again, it's hard when you're a tackle and that inside leg is bad. It's hard to kick slide off of. But if that outside leg is gone, your balance is going to be gone on the bull rush. So depending what knee that is, might really determine what side he's going to be on going forward.
So, folks, we are done with night one. Just to kind of touch base on a few things real quick. Again, one last reminder, tomorrow night at Chatty's from 7 to 9. We're going to go down the board one more time here, starting with Cole down to Brandon, and I will bring us home on who was the biggest reach of the first round and who was probably the biggest steal. I'm going to have to go ahead and say biggest reach. Kind of feel like Mikael Williams with the 49ers with that pick. 11th overall out of Georgia. God, it's tough. I think I'm going to go with him, though, as the biggest reach. Biggest sure thing. Also, that's a tough one. Sure thing or still, however you want to say it. But I do like the pick a lot, actually, of see it. I don't know, because it's so tough, when you're talking about this position of which way it's going to go. But we'll see. But the Ravens with Starks, to have the top safety in this draft available at 27 and be able to pick them up again, still have to play the games. I get it, but to me, man, does that seem like a steal at 27? So those are my two. How do you guys see it shaping out with the biggest steal of the draft and probably the biggest reach of the first round, I should say?
Well, I think Mikael Williams was the biggest reach until the Maxwell Hairston pick by the Buffalo Bills at the end. Like I said, I had Hairston pretty high. Actually, I take that back. One guy slipped my mind. Hairston, you just got a break because you're not the biggest reach. I forgot about Gray Zabel going to the Seattle Seahawks. I had Zabel as my 100th overall prospect. He went way too early tonight. I know he was linked to the Seattle Seahawks. Could be a good guard, but I don't see him being nearly as good as a lot of the other offensive linemen that were available at that time. So that is the biggest reach. So Seattle Seahawks, no surprise, you've reached on so many prospects in the last decade. I can't even count them all on one hand. Now, as for the biggest steal, I'm going to give, even though they had to trade up a pick, I'm going to give the Philadelphia Eagles a lot of credit for the Campbell pick. I think, considering he was my 11th ranked overall prospect and they got him at pick 31, I think that is an absolute steal. And if this is our final words, I'm going to say, by the way, Cleveland Browns first pick tomorrow. Hopefully, after Josh Simmons just came off the board, hopefully it's a Buckeye back-to-back. I think it should be a no-brainer that it should either be Quinshon Judkins or TreVeyon Henderson. The value at the start of the first round and getting a running back like that would be great. Take Henderson if you plan to bring Nick Chubb back. If you don't plan to bring Nick Chubb back, give me Quinshon Judkins. No Sanders. Forget about that. Give me a good running back.
No, I agree. The Browns have to pick a running back tomorrow night with that first pick. We'll see, and we will do it at Chatty's. Dom.
So instead of going with I'm losing my words here. It's getting late here, Vince. I think that I don't want to say the biggest steal, but I'm gonna say for sure thing for me is Carter. I really like Carter. Again, I think that if he can get in that weight room and get on a good weight plan, he's going to be a dominant force in this league. I don't think the Giants is a great landing spot, but I don't think it's a good landing spot for anyone they would have taken. I mean, they could have took anyone, and I would have told you it was a bad landing spot. That franchise is a mess. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, oh, it's a good place to land. That play you don't want to play in New York. Neither team in New York you want to play for. And instead of saying like a reach, I just want to say that Harold Finnan Jr. needs to go off the board tomorrow and get off the board early. Because he is still one of my top players. He's one of the best prospects to come out of the MAC in a very, very long time, outside of Mitchell from last year. Mitchell was by far the best MAC product we've seen probably since Ben Roethlisberger so many years ago. Hunt was a good prospect as well, but I mean, not close to Mitchell. And I think Fannin Jr. Again, I think if he went to Penn State or a Pitt or even like a Boston College or Georgia Tech, I think that he would have been a first round selection. But I think people are biased because of that Bowling Green, because of those Bowling Green colors. I mean, he went to Penn State and played just as good as Warren. So, yeah, he better come off the board earlier. I'm gonna flip a table over.
Brandon.
So if I'm looking at my board, technically the biggest reach would have been Maxwell Harrison, but I don't think it's going to surprise anybody when I say James Pierce Jr., especially the fact that the Falcons managed to reach twice on edge rusher and leave probably the best edge prospect outside of Abdul Carter just sitting there and trading up to do it. That when you factor all of that in, when it's not only a reach in terms of number on the board, but it's a reach in terms of the total amount of assets you had to use to go and acquire him. I don't see this turning out well for the Falcons. I really, really hope I am wrong for their sake, but not a big fan there. As far as sure things go, I think a lot of teams kind of nailed their need in this draft, but for the Ravens to be able to sit there and grab Malachi Starks all the way back at 27, and now your safety room consists of Malachi Starks and Kyle Hamilton behind it wasn't as good of a defense last year, but is always a solid unit. You're just going to continue solidifying that secondary, especially if they can grab another corner sometime in day 2. We're going to be right back to them being a dominant defense, and I really do not see a world where Starks is not successful in that scheme. Last thing, these are kind of our parting words. Browns still picking number 1 tomorrow. Maybe that changes. I don't know. But if I'm Cleveland, don't get cute. You got through the first round with only 2 quarterback prospects going. You knew you weren't going to get Cam Ward. Maybe you thought you had a chance at Jackson Dart. You still have everyone else available to you. I do not care who it is. Whoever you think is the best quarterback, go and get them with that first pick tomorrow. I don't care if it's Shedeur. I don't care if it's Milroe. Maybe I care a little bit if it's Tyler Shuck. I don't need another 26-year-old rookie walking in here. But go get your guy. Sit him behind, the room that we have currently. Let them learn for a year, and then, take off from there. But don't continue kicking the can down the road. You can't start tanking now, looking at next year's class. I know Arch Manning's great. There's no guarantee we're going to get him. We never know with this league. But anyway, if you're the Browns, get a freaking quarterback.
Yeah, if I'm looking at next year, I'm looking at Drew Eller. But
Eli Holstein, pick quarterback.
Drew Aller. So a long way to go on all of that. We will get there eventually. Everybody who got in the chat room there, thank you for the kind words. Ray Campbell there, obviously thank you. Very nice of you to say those things. So that's gonna do it. It was a long night 1, real close to 4 hours here, folks. We had a blast as always. We're always happy to do this for you. Thanking all of our fine sponsors along the way. For Cole McDaniel, remoting live there in Columbus. Brandon Soder-Penner and Dom Clary right here in the studios of Keon Sports. We will see you tomorrow night at Chatty's in Bay Village. Look up the address right there on Keon Sports on our sponsorship page. We're excited to come out and meet you in person tomorrow night. Thank you.